Chapter 2478. When Subai woke up, he saw a familiar face at first glance. He was stunned and seemed to be in disbelief. After a while, he said excitedly, "Did Master save me?" Lin Sun nodded. "You were seriously injured, but fortunately, your foundation was not hurt. After returning with me this time, let's go to the Myriad Tao realm together." Subai nodded fiercely. Over the years, he had long been the first quasi-emperor in the ancient Desolation territory. His temperament was resolute and eccentric, and he was respected by many cultivators. But at this time, in front of Lin Sun, he was like a helpless teenager, showing a look of shame and whispering, "Master, I'm incompetent, and I've lost face for you." Lin Sun helped him up from the ground, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "In the years that I've been away, I'm very surprised that you can make such great achievements alone. Speaking of which, it's me who's sorry," he sighed softly. Soon after he accepted Su Bai as a disciple, he left in a hurry and went to Kunlun ruins. After so many years, he had not given Su Bai any guidance or help at all. Under such circumstances, Su Bai could rely on his own strength to advance triumphantly on the road of cultivation, which moved Lin Sun, and he inevitably felt indebted to him. "Master, please don't say that. If you hadn't accepted me as a disciple, how could I have the chance to set foot on the road of cultivation?" Subai said quickly. Lin Sun smiled. Although Subai had grown up and was no longer the simple and introverted boy in straw shoes, the firmness and simplicity in his bones had not changed. "Let's go," Lin Sun said, and took Subai out of the dark prison. On this day, the Sky Sword Pavilion was destroyed, and a group of high-level figures, including the headmaster Hua Yundu, were killed. The news shook the entire Great Luo ancient domain and set off a great uproar. When people went to investigate, they saw that the Green Cliff Sword Mountain, known as the first blessed land in the world, had already collapsed into ruins, and the spiritual veins buried in the mountain had been taken away. At this point, people finally dared to be sure that the first sword sect, which had dominated the Great Luo ancient domain for countless years, had completely become the dust of history. Who did all this? No one knew. It was also in the later years that people finally understood who was the person who overturned the entire Sky Sword Pavilion with his own strength. At that time, Lin Sun had already been recognized as a supreme legend in all realms. Lin Sun did not return to the ancient Desolation realm after his injuries healed, as if to make up for Su Bai, his nominal disciple. Instead, he took Su Bai to the Blood Demon Ancient region, which was adjacent to the Great Luo Ancient region. Along the way, Lin Sun was not in a hurry. Instead, he took Su Bai to walk through the mountains and rivers, and occasionally entered the city to travel. A teacher imparts knowledge and dispels doubts. Along the way, Lin Sun also gave Su Bai some of his experiences in cultivation in the form of words and examples. Instead of pulling up seedlings to help them grow, what he elaborated was all the insights and experiences in cultivation. This was of great benefit to Su Bai's cultivation and would not affect his pursuit of the sword path. Su Bai also knew that the opportunity was precious, so he would discuss with Lin Sun if he had any insights along the way. Although his cultivation had not improved much, his understanding of the Great Way and his knowledge of cultivation had become more profound. 10 days later, Lin Sun and Su Bai came to the Dongtian Devil Cave, where the innate demon sect was entrenched. The first major force in the Blood Demon Ancient region was the innate demon sect. Back in the Nine Regions battlefield, Xueqingyi, one of the 8 absolutes of green underworld that Lin Sun had encountered, came from this sect. Like the Sky Sword Pavilion, the innate demon sect was also the first overlord of the Blood Demon Ancient region. After preaching, it was teaching by example. After arriving at the innate demon sect, Su Bai finally saw how terrifying the combat power of his master was. In merely a short moment, the heavily guarded abode Devil Lair was crushed into ruins, and all the higher-ups of the First Heaven Devil sect were annihilated like weeds in the blink of an eye. By the time Lin Sun returned, Su Bai was still in a daze. It was too fast. It was not like the overlord force of a region had been destroyed at all. Instead, it was like a casual stroll. It was also on this day that Su Bai realized the meaning of teaching by example. In the face of absolute combat power, what first force, what overlord of a region? They were just like chickens and dogs, vulnerable to a single blow. It was also on this day that Lin Sun asked Su Bai a question. Do you think my action of destroying the innate demon sect this time is inappropriate? Su Bai was taken aback and pondered for a long time. Master, you must have a reason to take action. Lin Sun shook his head. Everyone has different reasons for killing, but how can we distinguish whether this reason is killing innocents indiscriminately or justifiable? Su Bai thought hard for a long time before saying, if it's in the secular world, there are still laws and regulations to restrict killing, but in the world of cultivators, killing is respected by the strong. The world is so big that there are no restrictions. Under such circumstances, when we fight, we should protect our own lives and protect our relatives and friends as the bottom line. In this way, it can't be said to be killing innocents indiscriminately. Lin Sun nodded. This is the bottom line, but it's not a reason. In fact, as you said, in this world where cultivators run rampant, it's difficult to define the good and bad of killing. Su Bai blurted out, there are so many cultivators in this world, and everyone's views are destined to be different. In my opinion, we should act with a clear conscience. Lin Sun smiled and said, a clear conscience is difficult. Sometimes, it's even more difficult than seeking the Great Way. Su Bai said, if you have a clear conscience, you don't need the Great Way. Lin Sun did not comment. This conversation ended here. However, in the years to come, whenever Su Bai thought of this conversation, he could not help but feel a lot of emotions. A clear conscience, a guilty conscience, all of them pointed directly to his Taoist heart. Although this conversation did not change Su Bai's path, it had a great impact on his future cultivation. 1 month later, the master and disciple arrived at the East Mulberry Ancient Domain. They still traveled, comprehended, and preached. When their figures left, the first orthodoxy in the East Mulberry Ancient Domain, the Shinto sect, was destroyed. 40 days later, the master and disciple appeared in the Northern Underworld Ancient Domain. 50 days later, they appeared in the Heavenly Fire Ancient Domain. 2 months later, as Lin Sun and Su Bai's footprints spread to different realms, the first forces distributed in those realms were all destroyed. For example, the Emperor Ancestor Kuan clan of the Northern Underworld Ancient Domain, the Lai clan of the Heavenly Fire Ancient Domain, and the Zhu clan of the Extreme Yin Ancient Domain. Until half a year later, in the 8 realms of Zenith Heaven, Blood Devil, Northern Underworld, Heavenly Fire, Eastern Mulberry, Yin Absolute, Julie, and Star Fiend, every first force was reduced to ruins and dust. The news could not be concealed at all. As time passed, it even spread to the Great Wall of Imperial Pass, causing an unprecedented sensation for a while. The armies of the 8 regions, which had been attacking the Great Wall of Imperial Pass on a large scale in recent years, also withdrew one after another and disappeared on the battlefield. Obviously, the destruction of the different orthodoxies of the 8 regions had also greatly affected the armies of the 8 regions rushing to the battlefield. When Lin Sun and Su Bai appeared on the battlefield outside Yangwan, they were discovered at the first moment. Emperor Lin is back. For a time, everyone in the entire Yang Pass stopped what they were doing and rushed over. Clump Cloud War Emperor, Battle Emperor Qinshue, Shunji. In the end, all the strong people in the entire Yang Pass appeared on the front line. Everyone's expression was full of awe, respect, and fanaticism. It had already been more than half a year. How could they not understand that the collapse of the armies of the 8 regions was actually caused by Lin Sun alone? A single person had rushed into the 8 regions and pacified the 8 first forces. This achievement alone was enough to surpass the ages and shock the world. Master, they came to welcome you. Su Bai showed a look of amazement and could not help but yearn in his heart. When could he have the power of his master now? Let's go. Lin Sun lifted his foot and walked toward Yang Pass. On this day, Lin Sun returned with his disciple Su Bai. Tens of thousands of people came to welcome him, causing a sensation on the Great Wall of Imperial Pass. Soon, Lin Sun saw some familiar figures such as Mr. Shun, Thousand Feather Swordflower, and so on. They all came after hearing the news. When they saw Lin Sun, they were all filled with emotion. After many years, when they met again, the young man who was like a junior had long surpassed them on the road of the Great Path. On the same day, on the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass, a grand banquet was held for Lin Sun's return. There were tens of thousands of participants. It was said that no less than 100,000 jars of wine were drunk that night. I have heard what you did in the mortal world. Those orthodoxies in the ancient desolation domain are now in a panic and want to surrender to you. May I be so bold as to ask you to let them go? Until late at night, Mr. Shun found Lin Sun alone and talked about the orthodoxies in the ancient desolation domain. Let them go. A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. At that time, I was too merciful. When I returned to the mortal world this time, I found that all the people related to me were implicated. Even the clansmen of my family had to hide to avoid a catastrophe. Under such circumstances, do you think I will give them another chance to atone for their sins? Mr. Shin's expression changed constantly. After a long time, he sighed and said, I have expected this. However, if you want to take revenge, I am afraid that the orthodoxies in the ancient desolation domain will shed rivers of blood. Lin Sun said calmly, the external troubles of the 8 regions have been solved by me alone. At least within 1,000 years, there will be no more storms in the Imperial Pass. At this time, it is time to reshuffle the cards in the ancient desolation domain. Reshuffle. It was just a few words, but it represented an unimaginable reign of terror and bloodshed. Mr. Shun was about to say something, but Lin Sun sighed and said, Senior, no matter who it is, they can no longer change my will. I can only promise you that I will only behead the evil and destroy the orthodoxies. I will not cause too much killing. Mr. Shun was stunned and smiled bitterly. After a long time, he said, Well, I will not mention this matter anymore. Lin Sun smiled and raised a glass of wine to Mr. Shun. Chapter 2479. The news that Lin Sun refused to forgive the orthodoxies of the ancient desolation realm spread throughout the Great Wall of Imperial Pass the next morning. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Countless experts trembled. They realized that a great purge of the ancient desolation realm would begin with Lin Sun's powerful return. Emperor Lin is too unreasonable, isn't he? For countless years, more than half of the experts stationed on the Great Wall of Imperial Pass came from the major forces of the ancient desolation realm. Without us, how could the ancient desolation realm be preserved? Emperor Lin's actions are simply disappointing. Many experts' expressions changed. They were shocked and angry, shouting to find Lin Sun and stop him. They were all from the orthodoxies of the ancient desolation realm. How could they watch Lin Sun destroy the orthodoxies behind them? But when they arrived at Lin Sun's resting place, Lin Sun had already left with Su Bai. For a moment, they all looked at each other with ugly expressions. Obviously, Lin Sun had clearly expected that they would come to obstruct and plead for mercy, so he left one step ahead. Emperor Lin, aren't you worried that this will completely disappoint us? Someone's eyes turned red as he roared. Disappoint you? In the end, Mr. Shin stood out and said coldly, Everyone, I advise you to calm down and think about whether the ancient desolation realm has wronged Lin Sun or Lin Sun has wronged the ancient desolation realm. Before anyone could speak, Mr. Shun threw out several ironclad facts in succession. Many years ago, when the Battle of the 9 Regions broke out, who led the young experts of the ancient desolation realm to defeat the enemies of the 8 regions in one fell swoop and win a great victory in the 9 regions battlefield. Back then, Lin Sun made such a great contribution to the ancient desolation realm. How did the orthodoxies of the ancient desolation realm treat him? Don't you think about how those orthodoxies have treated Lin Sun's clansmen and friends after they went to the lower world in recent years? Mr. Shun's words were like a clap of thunder that resounded through the entire place, rendering the furious powerhouses speechless for a moment. How could they not know this fact? When it came to the treatment of Lin Sun and his clansmen, the Taoist orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation realm were indeed despicable. These are all matters of the past. Perhaps these orthodoxies were in the wrong, but they shouldn't have been destroyed, right? Someone spoke in a low voice. So long as Imperial Monarch Lin takes a step back and is able to allow these sects to have a chance to continue existing, then I believe they would be willing to pay any price. His words attracted many experts to nod in agreement. However, Mr. Shun frowned, coldly saying, "Since you all said those are matters of the past, then fine, let's not talk about these things right now. I only want to ask you all, this time, if Lin Sun didn't go out to fight, do you all feel that Imperial Pass Great Wall's power alone could stop the all-out attack of the 8 regions' great armies?" The scene was silent. Everyone's expression was gloomy. Lin Sun alone destroyed the army of the great Luo ancient region outside Yangwan. One person traversed the 8 regions, destroying 8 sovereign Taoist orthodoxies. The 8 regions suffered great losses to their vital energy and were thrown into chaos. One person saved the entire Imperial Pass from the fire and water. Mr. Shun's words were sonorous, resounding through the sky. Such military exploits are enough to be famous throughout the ages and go down in history forever. Now, he is just solving some personal grudges, and you all obstruct him. What? Only the forces behind you are allowed to bully others, but others are not allowed to bully back? What? Mr. Shun couldn't help but sulk at the end. Of course, if you really want to obstruct him, go back to your respective sects and fight to the death. But the world will remember, and history will remember who is the most worthy of respect and memory in the ancient Desolation realm. After that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Lin Sun didn't know all this. He had already returned to the ancient Desolation realm with Su Bai. "Master, are we really going to destroy those orthodoxies this time?" On the way, Su Bai couldn't help asking. Lin Sun said casually, "With the recovery of spiritual energy and the changes of the world, it's time for the world to change its course. What's more, if you do something wrong, you have to pay the price for it. Can we let bygones be bygones just because they're the so-called great forces and orthodoxies?" Subai nodded. "I'm just worried that doing so will damage your prestige. As for the life and death of those orthodoxies, I don't care. What prestige? It's nothing more than written by the winner who survives in the end." Lin Sun said indifferently. "Then, where shall we go first?" Subai asked. "The heaven-reaching sword sect." Lin Sun said. "White jade capital in the sky, 12 buildings and 5 cities. The immortal caressed my head, and my hair was tied to receive immortality." White Jade Capital was the name of a legendary figure in the heaven-reaching sword sect in the ancient Desolation realm. Now, it was also the name of the most fertile state in the ancient Desolation realm. It was the cold winter season. Heavy snow was falling, and the world was covered with ice and snow, creating a vast expanse of whiteness. In the city, cultivators with swords on their backs could be seen everywhere. On the bustling streets, Lin Sun and Su Bai walked among them. When they saw this scene, they unconsciously thought of Yun Qingbai. Yun Qingbai, a legendary swordsman who was as dazzling as a comet, was a sad and pitiful person. Many years ago, it was precisely because of his walking with a sword attire that he led the trend and became so popular that people could be seen everywhere in the territory of White Jade Capital with swords on their backs. Lin Sun could not help but look at Su Bai beside him. They were both born with sword bones and were equally dazzling, but the only difference might be fate. Let's go to the heaven-reaching sword sect. Revisiting the old place, things remained the same, but people had changed. Without any more emotion, Lin Sun and Su Bai gradually disappeared in the bustling streets. The heaven-reaching sword sect. The towering divine mountain stood tall, covered with snow and ice, and mist curled up. In the main hall of the sect, the atmosphere was so oppressive that people were almost out of breath. All the high-level figures, including Tsang Huanzi, the headmaster of the heaven-reaching sword sect, looked gloomy as if they had lost their parents. Lin Sun wants to destroy all the orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation realm, including our heaven-reaching sword sect. The sword sect is crazy. Someone gritted his teeth and spoke angrily. Isn't he afraid of being condemned and reviled by thousands of people? Isn't he afraid of going down in history? We have already expressed our intention to surrender and tried to ask for forgiveness. We are even willing to pay a great price for it. But he still doesn't agree. All the big figures spoke. Some were worried, some were angry, some were worried about gains and losses, and some were lost. Song Huanzi, the headmaster who had been silent, looked at the people around him in a daze. After a long time, he sighed and said, "Everyone, in today's world, no one can stop Lin Sun's killing. Whether we are willing or not, we have to admit that our heaven-reaching sword sect is on the verge of collapse and is in danger. Fight him. Fight him. No, absolutely not. If so, I'm afraid we will all be in trouble." Then what should we do? Escape? The main hall was noisy and chaotic. These big figures, who used to be high and mighty, were now like a group of ants on a hot pan, in a mess. Even Song Huanzi, the headmaster, was at a loss. They had long understood Lin Sun's strength. He was an invincible supreme existence. Whether it was in the myriad Dao realm, the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass, or even in the 8 regions, he was unparalleled. Enough. Suddenly, a deep voice resounded. A tall and stalwart figure walked into the main hall. An emperor's might swept out like a hurricane, intimidating everyone. Ancestor! Ancestor is back! Song Huanzi and the others were stunned, and then they all revealed excited expressions. This tall figure was White Jing. For the entire ancient Desolation region, White Jing was definitely a supreme legend. He was the senior brother of the founding ancestor of the heaven-reaching sword sect, a famous swordsman since ancient times. His name had even been crowned with the title of a prefecture by the people. At this time, in this precarious moment of internal and external troubles, White Jing, who had not appeared for countless years, suddenly appeared. This made Song Huanzi and the others feel as if they had grasped a life-saving straw, and they were extremely excited. White Jing. At the same time, an indifferent voice suddenly resounded outside the heaven-reaching sword sect. The tall and mighty figure that had just stepped foot into the hall suddenly stopped moving, and then he let out a long sigh. "Imperial Monarch Lin, you really came quickly." Song Huanzi and the others stiffened, and their expressions changed greatly. Lin Sun, he was already here? When they looked up again, White Jing's figure had long since disappeared from the main hall and arrived below the sky. Even further away, 2 figures stood in the air. One was tall and handsome, and the other was dressed in clothes whiter than snow. It was precisely Lin Sun and Su Bai. "Did you return in a hurry to stop me?" Lin Sun sized up White Jing and could not help but frown. A long time ago, he had heard Miao Xian of the Divine Secret Pavilion say that White Jing was a matchless hero. His breadth of mind and boldness were far beyond ordinary people. Early in the ancient times, he had headed to the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass to guard it and fight against the enemies of the 8 regions. For such a person, Lin Sun admired him very much. For example, not long ago on Imperial Pass Great Wall, Lin Sun had previously drank with White Jing, chatting merrily and wittily. However, Lin Sun never expected White Jing to immediately appear here. The Heavenly Sword Sect is founded by my junior brother after all, so I naturally can't stand idly by. If Emperor Lin is willing to take a step back and leave some hope for the Heavenly Sword Sect, I, White Jing, will be endlessly grateful, said White Jing with a calm expression. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, "You and I have different standpoints. It's useless to say more on this matter." White Jing let out a long sigh, a complicated look in his eyes. "I knew this would happen. Since that's the case, I can only try and see if I can stop Emperor Lin's killing intent." Boom! In an instant, his clothes and long hair fluttered in the wind, and he was like a divine sword that had been hidden deep within a sheath had emerged into the world at this moment. Sword insight shot out violently into the heavens and the earth, and it threw the snow and wind that covered the sky into disorder. Emperor Lin, please. An ancient sword appeared in Bai Yujing's hand. The blade was stained with blood, and it looked ancient and mottled. Then, I can only offend you. Lin Sun's eyes were calm, but he sighed softly in his heart. Chapter 2480. Bai Yujing smiled, raised the ancient sword in his hand, and chopped down. Whoosh! The sword chi was like a rainbow, covering the whole world. The heavy snow and thousands of miles evaporated into mist. This sword was simple, without a trace of smoke and fire. It was like a casual strike from a fairy in heaven, but it had the momentum to shock the mountains and rivers. Lin Sun stood still and flicked his finger. The same sword strike, but the sword intent and momentum contained in it smashed Bai Yujing's sword inch by inch, disintegrating and dissipating in the void. Good swordsmanship. Bai Yujing took a deep breath and swung his sleeves. He controlled the sword with his palm and fingers, and suddenly took 9 steps in the void. With each step, the power around him soared, and the ancient sword in his hand became more murderous, until he took 9 steps. His power had penetrated the 9 heavens and 10 earths, and his sword intent covered the vast mountains and rivers. Go! The ancient sword swept out and chopped in the void. It was like a ray of light tearing the eternal night and suddenly appearing in the world. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and chopped with his sword. One sword to destroy life and death. The sword intent of the sword evolved into the changing of the void and the illusion of the world. In the earth-shattering roar, Bai Yujing's sword was completely dissolved when it was 30 meters away from Lin Sun. Bai Yujing frowned. Why should I hold back? If you really want to protect my dignity, please fight with your real strength. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, Okay. He waved his sleeve. A stream of sword chi swept out like a galaxy, and there seemed to be a big abyss floating in it. The sun, moon, stars, mountains, and rivers were all annihilated. Bai Yujing's pupils shrank. He let out a thunderous roar, and his tall and stalwart figure seemed to be burning, blooming with endless light. In his palm, the ancient sword burned with blood, and he chopped out angrily. One sort of mortal was angry. This was the embodiment of the mystery of Bai Yujing's lifelong swordsmanship. As soon as this sword came out, the mountains and rivers within 10,000 miles around the heavenly sword sect showed signs of collapse and destruction. Countless exclamations of shock rang out as well. Unfortunately, this sword, which was enough to shock the world, failed to block Lin Sun's attack and collapsed in the void. Rumble. The torrent of sword chi burst forth like a vortex of the great path, wreaking havoc. In an instant, White Jade Jing's body was stained with blood. He was riddled with wounds, and his hair was disheveled. He had been severely injured, but from beginning to end, he never took a single step back. When they saw this scene, the big shots of the heavenly sword sect all cried out in alarm. The blood drained from their faces, and they were extremely pale. Get out of my way. Lin Sun opened his mouth in the distance. White Jade Jing was only at the 2nd level of the Emperor realm. His swordsmanship was outstanding, but that was all. What is a sword? The sharpest killing weapon in the world. What is the way of the sword? To rather break than bend, to never change. In the distance, White Jade Jing took a deep breath. His eyes were filled with determination. My sword path doesn't allow for retreat. Lin Sun nodded. Okay, I'll fulfill your wish. At this moment, he finally took a step forward as a boundless and terrifying aura was unleashed from his body. At that instant, it was like a brilliant sun had risen amidst the snow that covered the sky, and it was brilliant and illuminated the world. Rumble. The nearby void collapsed and shattered. On the vast mountain range where the heavenly sword sect was located, countless restrictions seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure. At this moment, they exploded with a rumble, and countless torrents of light splashed. Panicked screams and roars rang out one after another. All of this was caused by Lin Sun's aura. Suppress. White Jade Jing's expression changed slightly as he released a tyrannical and unparalleled power from his body. He rushed forward with his sword and went all out. However, in just a moment, he was constantly shaken back. No matter how he attacked or how desperately he tried, he was defeated in front of Lin Sun, who was moving forward. He was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, until Lin Sun stopped. White Jade Jing's skin cracked, and blood flowed like a waterfall. He was panting, and his figure swayed. He looked at Lin Sun with shock in his eyes, as if he had just realized how big the gap between him and Lin Sun was. "This battle is over." Lin Sun glanced at him, then turned around and left with Su Bai. "They're gone?" White Jade Jing was stunned. When he looked back at the place where the Heavenly Sword sect was, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his whole body froze. He saw that the mountain gate had long since collapsed. The huge Heavenly Sword sect was in a mess, as if there had been a landslide and a tsunami. Countless descendants screamed in horror in the ruins, panicking. As for Headmaster Tsang Huanzi and other high-level figures, they did not know when they had met with disaster. They lay there in disorder, their pupils wide open, full of unwillingness. Thousands of miles of beautiful mountains and rivers had turned into a scorched land. White Jade Jing trembled all over. Only now did he understand why Lin Sun had left. It turned out that during the battle, when he was still desperately resisting, the Heavenly Sword sect had already been flattened. White Jade Jing suddenly felt as if he had lost all his strength. He sat paralyzed in the void, gasping for breath. He remembered what Lin Sun had said in the Great Wall of Imperial Pass. Only behead the evil, only destroy the orthodoxy, and do not harm others. Now Lin Sun had done it. Karma, retribution, White Jade Jing murmured. On this day, wind and snow filled the world. On this day, the Heavenly Sword sect in the ancient Desolation realm was flattened by Lin Sun alone. On this day, when the news came out, the world was shocked. The destruction of the Heavenly Sword sect was like the prelude to a reshuffle that slowly began in the world. It made people in other paths of cultivation in the ancient Desolation realm panic and uneasiness. 2 days later, another news came out. In terms of foundation and power, the Heaven's Pivot Holy Land, which was not inferior to the Heavenly Sword sect, had collapsed and turned into ruins. Its inheritance that had lasted for countless years had been cut off. It was said that Lin Sun had arrived in the sky alone, and in a flash he had suppressed all opponents and was invincible. 5 days later, the news of the destruction of the Holy Land of spiritual treasure had made the world, which was already in turmoil, even more turbulent. Countless cultivators were shocked, as if they were witnessing a great purge. The Tao of the ancient Desolation realm, which no one had been able to shake in the past, was now destroyed one after another, turning into dust in the ruins. 7 days later, the Xuandu Taoism sect was destroyed. 10 days later, the Beast Spiritual Mountain was destroyed. In less than half a month, one behemoth after another fell, making the situation in the world completely chaotic. And the name of Lin Sun, like a storm, was constantly resounding in the ancient Desolation realm, shocking the hearts of the people. Until later, when Lin Sun appeared in a certain orthodoxy, he suddenly found that it had long been empty, without any successor. Obviously, with the destruction of those orthodoxies, other forces also realized that this time Lin Sun did not intend to let go of any of his opponents. Therefore, some orthodoxies even disbanded themselves and fled in a panic in advance. 1 month later, in the ancient Desolation realm, all the orthodoxies that had been hostile to Lin Sun in the past had collapsed and turned into a fleeting cloud. From this day on, the pattern of the world was completely broken by Lin Sun alone, and the curtain of a new era had been opened. Talented people appeared in every generation. It was the same for all the forces in the ancient Desolation realm. The fall of those behemoths also meant that in the future, new orthodoxies and new forces would rise to replace the territory and resources originally controlled by them. In this regard, countless forces were secretly grateful to Lin Sun. If he had not disturbed the pattern of the world alone, how could these forces seize the opportunity to rise? The world was changing, and the affairs of the world were turbulent. After doing all this, Lin Sun had already taken Su Bai to the place where the divine dark parasol tree was. Chapter 2481. Green Parasol Mountain. With the recovery of spiritual energy, the world changed dramatically. The original location of Green Parasol Mountain was dozens of times larger than before. On this day, Lin Sun floated over with Su Bai. As far as the eye could see, the majestic and ancient Green Parasol Mountain was filled with mist. The whole mountain seemed to be covered and looked very mysterious. Something's wrong. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. At a glance, he could see that the whole Green Parasol Mountain was covered by a layer of obscure and strange restriction power. Ordinary cultivators could not approach it at all. Even those in the Emperor realm would get lost if they entered it by mistake. Immediately, Lin Sun showed a strange expression because the restriction formation covering the whole Green Parasol Mountain was obviously arranged by the Scarlet Flame Taoist body. No wonder I can't sense the breath of the Scarlet Flame Taoist body. It seems that he encountered something tricky after entering this mountain. While Lin Sun was thinking, he put Su Bai into the treasure and approached Green Parasol Mountain. As he waved his sleeve, a path silently appeared on the Azure Parasol Mountain that was shrouded in mist. Lin Sun walked straight into it. Dark Parasol Mountain was majestic and rose and fell continuously. At the waist of the mountain was an ancient tree that seemed as if it was made from bronze. Its trunk and branches were completely bare, and they were suffused with a bronze glow as they stretched towards the depths of the sky. Many years ago, when Lin Sun participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, he had seen this tree. The cultivators in Shiheng territory all called it the ancient green lamp tree. But now, Lin Sun already knew that this tree should be called the divine dark parasol tree. However, it was just an empty shell, and the Soul Yuan root was not there. Soon, Lin Sun sensed the breath of the Scarlet Flame Taoist body. The latter had actually entered the divine dark parasol tree. Store a mountain in a mustard seed and hide a secret realm in it. There's actually a secret realm in this divine dark parasol tree. Lin Sun understood. He walked straight over, and his figure flashed and swept onto the divine dark parasol tree. Suddenly, a strange spatial fluctuation appeared, and the next moment, Lin Sun's figure appeared in a vast and dark starry sky. Numerous secret realms were like branches that had spread out, layer upon layer, and they were connected to each other as they stretched towards the depths of the starry sky, and it was impossible to see the end of them. Lin Sun was stunned, and he couldn't help but be moved. The divine dark parasol tree seemed to reveal a magnificent scene that encompassed the heavens and connected all worlds. Whoosh! Suddenly, in a secret realm in the distance, the figure of Scarlet Fire Taoist emerged and looked at Lin Sun's Blackwater Taoist from afar. In an instant, the memories and experiences of the two began to merge. After a while, Lin's Blackwater Taoist form completely understood what the Scarlet Flame Taoist form had experienced in this strange world. It turned out that after the Crimson Flame Taoist physique found this place, he'd sealed off the entire Dark Parasol Mountain with the energy of restrictions, and he'd done this because he was worried that the Dark Parasol Divine Tree's soul origin root would escape. After he entered the Divine Dark Parasol Tree, he arrived at this world of stars. Moreover, he encountered an extremely formidable opponent. It was an extremely beautiful woman in a green dress. Her origins were mysterious. The most incredible thing was that this woman was also a peerless great emperor. Her cultivation was also suppressed to the third level of the emperor realm. The Scarlet Flame Taoist physique had once fought with this woman. The latter's combat strength was so strong that even he was shocked. Fortunately, in terms of cultivation and combat skills, the woman in the green dress was inferior to the Scarlet Flame Taoist physique. When the two fought, the woman in the green dress had always been at a disadvantage. But what gave the Scarlet Flame Taoist physique a headache was that the woman in the green dress had all kinds of mysterious emperor treasures in her hands, which helped her repeatedly to avert danger. Over the past 6 months, the Scarlet Flame Taoist physique had fought with the woman in the green dress many times. But every time, the woman in the green dress had escaped unscathed. Later, the scarlet flame Taoist physique realized that the woman in the green dress was not from the ancient desolation realm, nor did she come from the starry sky ancient path. Instead, she came from the nirvana world, a peerless great emperor from the nirvana world, and a woman at that. This was undoubtedly incredible. After all, the starry sky ancient path was still covered by the forbidden power of order. The path to the nirvana world had always been blocked. But this woman in the green dress could cross the starry sky and appear in the ancient desolation realm. Of course, this was not simple. However, although the scarlet flame Taoist physique did not know the real origin and name of the woman and how she had crossed the starry sky, the scarlet flame Taoist physique still deduced. She had come for the divine soul root of the dark parasol divine tree and had already subdued it. This was because the woman had tried to escape from the starry sky world formed by the dark parasol divine tree's main body several times, but she was blocked by the scarlet flame Taoist physique. This was also the reason why the scarlet flame Taoist physique was still guarding this place until now. After knowing all this, the scarlet flame Taoist physique sea of consciousness also showed the various details and scenes of the battle between the scarlet flame Taoist physique and the woman in the green dress in the past 6 months. This woman was indeed not simple. She was dressed in a green dress, had smooth skin, a graceful figure, and a beautiful face. She was like a fairy who had walked out of a painting. There was a strange golden Taoist pattern between her eyebrows. She had 3 mysterious treasures in her hands. One was a golden lock with strange Taoist inscriptions engraved on both sides, and there were 3 white jade chains under the lock. Once this treasure was utilized, the 3 white jade chains would release 9 black divine chains, causing the soul and body of the victim to be firmly restrained. Even the strength of one's mental state and what would be restrained by layer upon layer of shackles, causing one to be unable to move at all. At the beginning of the battle, Lin Sun's scarlet flame Taoist physique was almost trapped, and he had to use all his strength to resist the suppression of this treasure. The second treasure was a jade hairpin that was inserted in the woman's hair bun. It was only 6 inches long and as thick as a chopstick, and its surface was engraved with the ancient seal script Void Escape. The 5-color divine light that this treasure emitted could completely cover the aura of the woman in the green dress. Not to mention that divine sense couldn't sense it. Even the divine eye couldn't see it, and it was impossible to lock onto it. In the past 6 months, the woman in the green dress had relied on this treasure to repeatedly avoid Lin Sun's search, and she hadn't been captured until now. The third treasure was a purple flying sword, which was extremely sharp. It could not be bound by the space, and its lethality was even more amazing. Ordinary emperor weapons would be smashed in an instant. It was with these 3 mysterious treasures that the woman in the green dress could greatly make up for her lack of combat power, so that she could avoid danger one after another. She has the cultivation of Emperor Realm, and even the treasures she carries with her are all precious. This woman is not simple. Lin Sun's Heishui physique couldn't help but be moved. Immediately, he murmured, "However, with our strength, as long as she appears again, we should be able to capture her. At that time, we can know her origin." Scarlet Flame Taoist physique was silent, because they were able to sense each other's thoughts. Whoosh! The next moment, the 2 Taoist physiques merged into one. According to Lin Sun's plan, when the woman in the green dress appeared again and suddenly displayed the power of the 2 Taoist physiques, he would definitely be able to catch her off guard. However, at this moment, in a secret realm in the distance, a clear and pleasant voice like the sound of nature suddenly rang out. It turns out that these 2 are just doppelgangers. Lin Sun's pupil shrank, and he suddenly looked in the direction of the voice. A rain of light drifted, outlining a graceful and slender figure. She was dressed in a green dress, with her long hair coiled into a bun and a jade hairpin inserted in it. She had bright eyes and white teeth, and her facial features were delicate. There was a golden pattern between her eyebrows. At this moment, when she walked out, she was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Her every move was enshrouded by the divine light of the Great Way, which made her mysterious and dreamy. However, her eyes, when looking at Lin Sun, were extraordinarily cold and indifferent. "Since I've been discovered by you and still dare to show up, aren't you worried about being captured by me?" Lin Sun looked calm. He had already expected that it was the wonderful power of the void jade hairpin that covered the trace and breath of the woman in the green dress, so that he couldn't detect her at the first time. "Capture?" The woman in the green dress showed a touch of disdain in her eyes. "In the past half a year, you and I have fought here many times, but have you ever captured me? Even if you have one more doppelganger now, it is doomed to be in vain." She looked very confident and calm. "How do you know if you don't try?" Lin Sun spoke casually, and he was about to make a move as he spoke. "Wait." The woman in the distance said, "What you want is none other than the sole origin root of the dark parasol divine tree. I can give it to you, but you must remove the grand formation that seals this place and let me leave." "Is this an exchange?" Lin Sun seemed to be lost in thought. "I'm asking you if you agree." The woman in the green dress frowned. Obviously, she was still very resistant to such a suggestion. Lin Sun said, "All right, but I have other conditions. Don't reach out for a yard after taking an inch." The woman's beautiful eyes turned cold. "If it wasn't for the fact that I don't want to waste my trump card on a person like you, do you really think I would make such an exchange with you?" Lin Sun smiled. "Then there's no exchange. Let's see who's the real deal." His words were casual, yet they seemed very unyielding. The woman in the green dress was stunned, and her picturesque face flickered indeterminately. After a while, she said, "Tell me, what other conditions do you have?" Lin Sun said, "Tell me about your background, identity. Most importantly, how did you come here from Permitha?" The woman in the green dress clearly heaved a sigh of relief. Obviously, these conditions that Lin Sun raised were nothing to her. "My surname is Yuan, and my name is Qingheng. I'm from the Permitha world you speak of, and I'm a direct line descendant of the Eternal Emperor clan, the Yuan clan." The woman's voice was light, yet Lin Sun was still able to discern a trace of pride and conceit in her voice when she said the Eternal Emperor clan, the Yuan clan. Unfortunately, Lin Sun was utterly unaware of exactly what sort of power and status the Eternal Emperor clan represented in the Permitha world. So, his heart was completely unperturbed. Lin Sun's calm reaction caused Yuan Qingheng to be slightly stunned, and then she laughed at herself in her heart. The natives of this starry sky ancient path probably don't even know what sort of existence the Eternal Emperor clan is. I could be considered to be playing the lute to a cow. Lin Sun was unaware of the subtle reaction in Yuan Qingheng's heart, and even if he knew, it would be utterly impossible for him to care. He reminded, "Miss, you haven't told me how we got here. P.S. I've been on the road for a whole day and started riding as soon as I got home. I haven't had a bite yet, and I'm really exhausted. I owe everyone one more chapter tonight." Chapter 2482. After thinking for a while, Yuan Qingheng opened his slender and fair palm. A slender silver shuttle emerged. Its edges were restrained, and both ends were as sharp as swords. Its surface was branded with strands of twisted, earthworm-like inscriptions. With the appearance of the silver shuttle, wisps of immortal aura turned into a misty rain of light, which looked extremely mysterious. Lin Sun's pupils suddenly shrank at a glance. The aura contained in this treasure made him feel a fatal threat. "This is a copy of my race's eternal divine artifact, the Cosmic Sky Source Shuttle, and it contains a strand of the quintessence energy of the eternal order within it. Not to mention arriving at this world, even heading to other worlds would be as easy as blowing off dust with this treasure." Yuan Qingheng noticed the change in Lin Sun's eyes and couldn't help showing a touch of pride. What's more, this starry sky ancient path is just one of the boundless world. Although it has been shrouded by the Thunder Order of 8th rank controlled by Luo family for countless years, it can't stop me if I want to. These words made Lin Sun keenly capture some information. Starry Sky Ancient Path was just one of the boundless world. The forbidden power of order controlled by Luo family was called Thunder Order, which was listed as 8th rank. This made Lin Sun realize that the power of order born in the origin of heaven and earth was also divided into grades. Miss, can you tell me something about the boundless world? Lin Sun asked. Yuan Qingheng frowned. Don't you think you have too many questions? Lin Sun laughed. It's not easy for me to meet a distinguished person from the Permethal world. I'm a little curious. Don't worry, it's just a chat. Maybe we can become friends. Yuan Qingheng sneered, and a playful light flashed in her beautiful eyes. Be friends with me? You sure have guts. It has nothing to do with courage, Lin Sun said with a smile. How could he not see that Yuan Qingheng's identity was destined to be extraordinary? And even in the Permethal world, he was an extremely special character. Because of this, Lin Sun would not let Yuan Qingheng leave so easily. He was very curious about the Permethal world. Don't talk nonsense. I only answer 3 more questions, Yuan Qingheng said. Lin Sun thought for a while and agreed happily. The first question he raised was related to the vast 1,000 domains. Yuan Qingheng was not surprised and explained. As it turned out, in the eyes of the cultivators of the Permethal world like Yuan Qingheng, the Permethal world was known as the eternal true world, and it was known as the land of eternity. Beyond the eternal true world were numerous galaxies and universes, and they were collectively known as the Great Thousand Worlds. The starry sky ancient path was one of the many boundless worlds. According to Yuan Qingheng, the starry sky ancient path could barely be ranked in the top 100 according to the strength of the forces in the Great Thousand World. Knowing this, Lin Sun's heart fluctuated. Only then did he realize that his previous knowledge was still limited. In the Great Thousand Worlds, the starry sky ancient path could only be ranked in the top 100. The eternal true world, which was known as Permethal, was a place that stood above all other worlds. A long time ago, the starry sky ancient path gave birth to many powerful figures. At that time, which is what you call the beginning of the ancient times, the ranking of the starry sky ancient path was firmly in the top 3 of the Great Thousand Worlds, and it was even ranked first several times. Yuan Qingheng suddenly said, Unfortunately, the origin of order of the starry sky ancient path once encountered calamity, causing it to collapse and sink into oblivion. It was also from then on that the progenitor realm was the end of the path in the world, and there was no more immortal karma. What calamity? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and asked. A hint of slyness flashed in Yuan Qingheng's eyes. Does this count as the second question? Lin Sun could tell that this woman was obviously not going to tell him the truth. He thought for a while and said, This shouldn't be a secret. I will learn about it sooner or later. After a pause, he asked the second question, How is the origin of order divided into grades? Yuan Qingheng was stunned for a moment before she seemed to come to a realization. She said, As a top grade emperor, you don't even know the division of the origin of order. Has the starry sky ancient path really fallen to such a state? Lin Sun looked at her quietly and said, No matter how much it has fallen, aren't you still trapped here? Yuan Qingheng snorted coldly. I just don't want to waste my trump card. As she spoke, she threw a jade slip to Lin Sun. The division of the origin of order is recorded in this. Lin Sun sized it up, and a wave of emotions rose in his heart. It turned out that in the Permethal eternal world, the understanding of the origin of order had already reached an unimaginable level, and a perfect division system had been formed. The origin of order was born from the origin of chaos, and was formed by the origin of great Tao that maintained the operation of a world. It could be called the origin of world law. The origin of order was divided into 3 grades and 9 grades according to its power. The 3 grades were Earth grade, Heaven grade, and God grade. Each grade was divided into 1 to 9 grades. Generally speaking, Earth grade order was already terrifying. In the eternal world, many of the immortal emperor clans each controlled more than one type of Earth grade order. For example, the forbidden origin of order that covered the sky above the starry sky ancient path was the Earth grade 8 lightning grade order controlled by the Permethal Luo family. As for Heaven grade order, it was considered the pinnacle of power and was usually only controlled by the most powerful forces. As for God Great Order, it was as rare as phoenix feathers and Chelan horns. Even in the eternal world, only the eternal gods who stood at the peak of the world and stood above all other races could control it. After understanding this, Lin Sun was even more puzzled. The Permitha Luo family only controlled Earth Grade 8 Lightning Grade Order, but it could cover the starry sky, ancient path, and intimidate all living beings. How terrifying was the Heaven Grade Order? And that God-level order power. How incredible would that be? And what kind of terrifying existence was the Eternal God Clan? The only thing Lin Sun could be sure of was that the immortal emperor clans were a colossus that stood above the starry sky, ancient path. As for the eternal gods, even the immortal emperor clans could only look up to them. Eternal world, boundless world, rank 3 lightning grade order. It looks like the Permitha world is far more vast and powerful than I imagined. Lin Sun could not help but sigh in his heart. I'm curious how you managed to step into the ultimate emperor realm. After all, without the support of the origin of order, it would have been impossible for anyone to reach the ultimate emperor realm on the starry sky ancient path. Yuan Qingheng suddenly asked, "You want to know?" "Sure. Then answer some of my questions and I'll tell you," Lin Sun said. Yuan Qingheng was stunned and could not help but laugh. "Even if you don't tell me, I can still find out. In other words, you want to bargain with me?" "No way." Lin Sun did not mind and threw out his third question. "What is the status of the Permitha Luo family in the eternal world?" Yuan Qingheng thought about it and said, "In the eyes of ordinary forces, the Permitha Luo family is a colossus that rules over many universes. They are too high to reach. Among the immortal emperor clans of the same level, they can be considered middle level. Not high, not low. They can't be compared to the peak immortal emperor clans, but they aren't ordinary immortal emperor clans." At this point, Yuan Qingheng thought of something and said, "In truth, the Permitha Luo family used to be among the best of the immortal emperor clans. They were like the sun in the sky. Unfortunately, with the disappearance of the master of Skirich, the family is no longer as it used to be." She looked at Lin Sun. Of course, to the starry sky ancient path, the Permitha Luo family is no different from a supreme god. Lin Sun's expression was indifferent. "How does it compare to the Yuan clan behind you?" The corners of Yuan Qingheng's moist lips curled up. "Although this is the fourth question, I don't mind telling you that the Permitha Luo family might have been able to compete with my Yuan family in the past, but now, there's no point in competing." Lin Sun immediately realized that the Yuan clan was probably one of the top behemoths among the immortal emperor clans. Otherwise, Yuan Qingheng would not have dared to make such a judgment. It was no wonder that she had been so full of herself from the beginning. Even being trapped did not diminish her pride. Lin Sun suddenly said, "Then do you know the immortal clan behind the myriad transformation spear, the sky-splitting axe, the god-slaying sword, and the Armageddon halberd?" Back in the nirvana of freedom, when he was about to become emperor, 3 men and 1 woman had traversed the boundless starry sky to arrive, displaying unparalleled power. It was the master of the core dimensions will that defeated the 3 men and 1 woman, and told Lin Sun that the forces behind the 4 were 4 immortal clans. Yuan Qingheng's pupils shrank imperceptibly in surprise. "You know about the 4 immortal clans?" Speaking up to here, she suddenly came to a realization and sneered. "You really have a lot of questions. This is already the 5th question." Lin Sun laughed. "I can see that the 4 immortal clans are not simple. At least, even you would not dare to rely on them. Do you think I will fall for such childish provocation?" Yuan Qingheng glanced at Lin Sun. Lin Sun said, "But at least I know that the 4 immortal clans control the power of the heavenly order. According to what you said before, the 4 immortal clans should be more powerful than the Permitha Luo family, and may even be more powerful than the Yuan clan. Keep provoking me. Let's see if I will answer your question." Yuan Qingheng crossed her arms in front of her chest, her starry eyes filled with disdain. She looked as if she was saying that Lin Sun's little tricks could not fool her eyes. Lin Sun sighed softly. "Forget it. Since you are so vigilant, then our conversation ends here. Hand over the divine dark parasol tree soul root, and I will let you go. This chapter contains a lot of information, so please take note. Chapter 2483. Yuan Qingheng didn't expect that Lin Sun, who was trying to get more information from him, would agree to let him go the next moment. She was startled and waved her hand. A bronze box covered with complicated Taoist patterns appeared, and she handed it to Lin Sun. This box is a good emperor treasure. It can contain all the treasures in the world. I'll give it to you. Lin Sun operated his cultivation and opened the bronze box. He probed it with his divine sense and saw a divine tree that seemed to be made of bronze rooted in the box. Its branches were strong like swords. It was the sole root of the divine dark parasol tree. He took out the treasure and put it away. He raised his hand and returned the bronze box. Since it's an exchange, how can I take advantage of you? Yuan Qingheng was startled and snorted, "It's fine if you don't want it." Lin Sun smiled and didn't say anything. He turned around and left the starry world. Yuan Qingheng followed him closely. When he came to Azure Parasol Mountain, Lin Sun waved his sleeve and the restriction formation that covered the world was removed. Seeing this, Yuan Qingheng was obviously relieved and said, "I didn't expect you to keep your promise. I'll let bygones be bygones." After that, she flew away with her clothes fluttering in the wind. Lin Sun stood where he was and didn't stop her. He knew very well that if this woman really wanted to leave, he wouldn't be able to stop her. "By the way, what's your name?" Yuan Qingheng turned around and looked at Lin Sun with her beautiful eyes. "Lin Daoyuan," Lin Sun said casually. "Oh." Yuan Qingheng didn't say anything further before turning around and leaving. His figure flashed before vanishing into thin air, and he didn't even leave a trace behind. Lin Sun thought for a while and turned to look at the divine dark parasol tree on Azure Parasol Mountain. In the end, he gave up the idea of taking the tree away. After all, it was only an empty shell. It wouldn't take long for it to decay and dissipate as time passed. It's time to return to the mortal world. Lin Sun didn't delay and turned around. Along the way, he couldn't help but think of what Yuan Qingheng said. Eternal world, boundless world, order force, immortal emperor clan. The information contained in those words was enough for Lin Sun to ponder for a long time. Granny Star. At the same time, Yuan Qingheng spoke in his heart. "Why did you tell me to hold back before? Is that Lin Daoyuan guy really that powerful?" In her sea of consciousness, a silver shuttle floated, sprinkling an immortal rain of light. At this time, a kind voice came from it. "Miss, this person's cultivation is extraordinary. Even if you use your trump card, you might be able to capture him, but you will have to pay a great price. Why don't you both take a step back? After all, there is no deep hatred between the two of you." Yuan Qingheng was taken aback. "Not even you?" The benevolent voice reminded, "Young lady, don't forget that what you saw just now were just two clones of that young man. He is a peak great emperor, and he is able to refine his clone to the point where he can fight against you. This kind of person is not that easy to defeat." Yuan Qingheng snorted coldly, and a hint of unwillingness shone in her eyes. "If I really fight with my life on the line, even if his real body comes, I am confident that I can capture him. But you are right. Since there is no grudge between us, it is not worth it for me to do so. In my opinion, since this child can become an emperor on the ancient path of galaxy, he is definitely not an ordinary, peerless person. If you have the chance to keep him by your side and use him in the future, he will definitely be able to assist you in your great cause." The kind voice reminded Yuan Qingheng. Yuan Qingheng frowned slightly and sank into deep thought. After a long while, she shook her head and said, "Granny Star, this kind of person is very unyielding. How can he possibly submit to someone else? Besides, I have always found this person to be an eyesore. If I really have the chance to meet him again, I will definitely beat him up to vent my anger." Granny Star let out a bitter laugh. In Eternal True World, the young lady was like the pearl in the palm of the Yuan clan. Even some of the clan masters who could command heaven and earth had to be polite to her. Perhaps it was because her status was too noble that she had not experienced too many hardships in the world, even though she was incredibly intelligent and had a high level of cultivation. However, it was not a bad thing for her to experience such a trial. After all, the purpose of this trip was to temper the young lady's Tao heart. Besides life and death, everything else was nothing. Granny Star, where are we going next? Yuan Qingheng asked. In the beginning, this ancient path of galaxy had the 4 great Tao ruins, and it was ranked at the top of the Great Thousand Worlds. A long time ago, there were some legendary people who possessed such great power that they could be said to be inconceivably powerful, even in eternal true world. They could even make the immortal emperor clans wary of them, Granny Star said. But as the ruins of creation and ruins of profundity disappeared, and as the ruins of Kunlun and ruins of End suffered great disasters, the ancient path of galaxy gradually declined. There was a sentimental tone in her voice. Yuan Qingheng said, "Are the 4 great Tao ruins really so mysterious?" "They are more than mysterious." Granny Star clearly knew a lot of secrets. Speaking of which, the 4 great Tao ruins are the most mysterious, unknown places in the world. Even in the eternal true world, there are not many places that can compare to the 4 great Tao ruins. However, these are all things of the past. Regardless of whether it's the Kunlun ruins or the ruins of End, they've long since lost the essence they originally possessed. Otherwise, those old fellows in the eternal true world would have long since fought to the death over them. After pausing for a moment, Granny Star continued, "Young lady, since we have come to the ancient path of galaxy, why don't we go to ruins of End and Kunlun ruins? According to what I know, Luo Clan Skirich Master once suffered a great defeat in ruins of End. That place is also where Fangsuan Mountain is located." Yuan Qingheng said in surprise. "Fangsuan Mountain?" "Yes, that Fangsuan Mountain," Granny Star said. A strange look appeared in Yuan Qingheng's eyes. He said, "Then we really have to go and take a look. I have been curious about the mysterious Fangsuan Mountain for a long time. How could it make those immortal emperor clans view it as a great enemy?" As they spoke, Yuan Qingheng's figure gradually disappeared into the distance. The mortal world, the forbidden city, heart-cleansing peak. It had been more than half a year since Lin Sun's 2 Tao bodies left. During this period of time, Lin Sun fought in the battlefield of the Imperial Pass and the 8 regions, setting off a lot of uproar. When the orthodoxies of the ancient Desolation territory were destroyed one after another, and the whole world was shocked, Lin Sun had quietly returned. In the evening, the sunset glow of heart-cleansing peak was like fire, and the divine light was flowing. On the top of the mountain, Lin Sun's 5 Tao bodies gathered together and communicated with each other, so that Lin Sun learned some things that happened in the mortal world in the past half a year. But they were all trivial things, nothing worth paying attention to. Lin Sun released his disciples Su Bai and Gu Shi from the treasure and introduced them to other people on Heart-Cleansing Peak. After that, he let them stay. Nowadays, unprecedented upheavals broke out in the mortal world every period of time. Cultivating in the mortal world was even more beneficial than cultivating in the ancient Desolation territory. In this regard, both Su Bai and Gu Shi happily agreed. From this day on, Su Bai began to serve as an elder of the Yuanshi Taoist sect, specializing in criminal law. Gu Shi also joined the Yuanshi Taoist sect, but he did not take a specific position. Instead, he accompanied Su Bai and helped him with various trivial matters. That night, Lin Sun's green wood Tao body went to the Green Lotus Secret Realm. The origin of myriad Tao. Lin Sun was meditating and meditating. In front of him, the abyssal sword cauldron floated and sank, and the crystal purple phoenix flame of order appeared, resolving the oppressive force from heaven and earth. It had been nearly 4 years. Lin Sun would meditate on the mystery of the origin of myriad Tao every once in a while, and as his understanding of the great Tao deepened, the speed of his meditation was also constantly improving. Up to now, he had mastered more than 500 new great Tao laws. The core power of the origin of myriad Tao is constantly released and spreading. According to this situation, it will take at least hundreds of years for the origin of myriad Tao here to be completely exhausted. It's a pity that there is not much complete power left here. As time goes by, it is destined to be less and less. In less than 10 years, I'm afraid I won't be able to comprehend the complete power of the origin of Myriad Tao. A sense of urgency rose in Lin Sun's heart. He had to hurry up. Suddenly, as if sensing something, Lin Sun got up, put away the abyssal sword cauldron, and walked out of the secret realm. Outside the secret realm, Greenwood Tao body was already waiting there. Lin Sun's spirit immediately formed a connection with Greenwood Tao body, and he learned about all kinds of things he had experienced in the past few years. After a while, he took the Soul Yuan root of the divine dark parasol tree from Greenwood Tao body and put it away. Now he had collected all the Soul Yuan roots of the divine dark parasol tree, Fusong tree, Jimu tree, and Kunwa tree, as well as the primordial water, pure and turbid star soul sand, chaotic living soil, five-colored wonderful soil, and other divine materials. This also meant that he could already start to condense the seedling of the chaotic tree. As long as he could do this, he would have the opportunity to meditate on the law of chaos. Lin Sun would never forget that there were very few people who could condense the seedling of the chaotic tree in the history of the starry ancient path from ancient times to the present. To be able to cultivate a seedling of the chaotic tree in the life emperor realm was not as simple as meditating on the law of chaos. It could also consolidate his cultivation, temper the law of doubt around him, and let the life emperor realm glow with the real power of chaos. Well, when I can no longer comprehend the complete mystery of the origin of Myriad Tao, I will condense the seedling of the chaotic tree. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun made a decision. His priorities were very urgent. He could condense the seedling of the chaotic tree at any time in the future, but he only had one chance to comprehend the mystery of the origin of Myriad Tao, and the time was getting more and more urgent. For this reason, Lin Sun immediately transmitted a thought to Greenwood Tao body to go to the heart-cleansing peak. He planned to leave only one Tao body to guard the heart-cleansing peak, and the other Tao bodies would go together with him to meditate in the origin of Myriad Tao. P.S. From today on, the normal update will be resumed, and we will start to prepare for the update. Chapter 2484. In the end, Blackwater Tao body stayed at Heart-Cleansing Peak. Greenwood, Platinum, Yellow Earth, and Red Fire Tao body, together with Lin Sun himself, entered the origin of Myriad Tao for closed-door training. Flowers bloomed and fell, and time flew. As time went by, the spiritual energy in the lower world became more and more intense. Mountains, rivers, lakes, grass, and trees all glowed with a new appearance under the nourishment of spiritual energy. Countless folding secret realms and blessed places were unearthed one after another, causing cultivators to fight for them. So there was a bloody storm one after another. Even some remote and barren lands had now turned into spiritual mountains and beautiful waters. The most incredible thing was that the territory of Myriad Tao world was still expanding and extending. Among them, the greatest change was undoubtedly the Forbidden City. This Myriad Tao Holy Land was regarded as the core of the recovery of spiritual energy. Almost every once in a while, an unparalleled Tao fate would be born, causing a sensation in the world. Unfortunately, not to mention ordinary cultivators, even those great forces in the Forbidden City could only watch helplessly. No matter how envious and covetous they were, they didn't dare to fight for it. The reason was very simple. These unparalleled Tao fates were regarded as the exclusive property of the Yuanshi Taoist sect. Whoever snatched, it was against the Yuanshi Taoist sect. Under such circumstances, who would eat a bear's heart and a leopard dare to get involved? It was absolutely courting death. It should be known that as time went by, all the achievements of Lin Sun in the ancient desolation domain, the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass, and the 8 regions had already been spread back to the lower world, shocking the world. Even because of this, Lin Sun was crowned as the first emperor of the ancient desolation domain. With Lin Sun in charge of the Yuanshe Taoist sect, naturally no one dared to provoke it. In fact, even without Lin Sun's help, the Yuanshe Taoist sect could already be regarded as a top force in the world with its current foundation. Especially in recent years, the Yuanshe Taoist sect had accepted more and more descendants, and a group of dazzling geniuses had also emerged, leading the way in this great world. As the saying went, all the heroes of the world returned to the Yuanshe, and as time went by, the cultivation of the descendants of the Yuanshe Taoist sect also continued to improve, constantly breaking some records in the world. It could be said that the rise of the primordial Tao sect was already unstoppable. Sooner or later, it would become the true overlord of the lower realms. The only thing that made the people of the lower realm feel fortunate was that the primordial Tao sect was only entrenched in the Forbidden City and would never get involved in anything outside the Forbidden City. This also gave the other major forces a chance to expand their territory and rise up. After all, the current Myriad Tao world was so vast that it was comparable to a great world. In addition to the Forbidden City, there were many famous mountains, blessed lands, and folded secret realms in the world. The opportunities born in them were also innumerable, which were enough for any big force to explore and compete for. Lin Sun had long been in no mood to care about the changes in the outside world. Even the body of black water on Heart-Cleansing Peak would only show up when it encountered extremely important things. At other times, he lived in seclusion and did not care about the affairs of the world. However, while Lin Sun and other doppelgangers were in closed-door training, Blackwater Tao form was not idle. He had been deducing something. It was a heavily sealed bronze box. This was an item obtained from Master Lu by Xian Shangchen, the head of Xian family, and he gave it to Lin Sun. According to Master Lu, there was a treasure left by Lin Sun's mother, Luo Qingxuan, in this box. If Lin Sun could open this bronze box within 100 years, he could go to find Luo Qingxuan. If he couldn't open it within 100 years, he needed to destroy the box completely. When he received this bronze box, Lin Sun had inferred that this should be an extremely important test, and Master Lu didn't deliberately make things difficult for him. Now, it had been more than 10 years since Lin Sun got the bronze box, but his understanding of the seal power on the bronze box was far from 10%. The seal power was composed of tens of thousands of interlocking prohibitions. It was obviously arranged by Master Lu himself. Even with Lin Sun's attainments in Taoist patterns, he felt extremely difficult to deduce. However, according to his deduction, it should be enough for him to completely break the seal power on the bronze box within 100 years. While Blackwater Tao form was meditating and deducing the bronze box left by Master Lu. Green Lotus Secret Realm. Lin Sun and the other four Tao form were also seizing all the time to understand the mystery of the origin of Tao. 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Time flies in the blink of an eye and passes in the blink of an eye. To cultivators, time flies by in the blink of an eye while cultivating behind closed doors. Until the 9th year after Blackwater Tao form and Red Fire Tao form returned from the ancient Desolation Realm. It was also the 13th year of Lin Sun's closed-door cultivation. On this day, in the origin of Tao, Lin Sun and the four Tao form woke up from their meditation and looked at each other with a trace of disappointment. Originally, according to his deductions, he should have been able to comprehend it for at least another 10 years. However, who would have thought that in the 9th year, the core power of the myriad Taoist genesis would no longer contain the complete profundities of the grand Tao origins. It seemed that even if he continued to meditate on the incomplete Tao, he could only get limited understanding and couldn't even temper it to the extreme. Well, it's time to leave. Lin Sun stood up. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The other four Tao form instantly merged into his body. Putting away the abyssal sword cauldron, Lin Sun turned around and left. His body had been here for 13 years, and the other four doppelgangers had practiced together for 9 years. So far, they had mastered more than 5,000 new Tao laws. It seemed that there were many laws, but these 5,000 Tao laws were also very different. Some could be called small Tao, and some could be called Tao. Even among the great Daos and minor Daos, there were differences. But no matter what, these mysteries of Tao were part of the essential secrets of the world. When they were accumulated together, there would be a qualitative change sooner or later. For example, when Tao atavism, the accumulated Tao laws, could be turned into a strong capital for Tao atavism. In fact, in today's starry sky, it was absolutely impossible to find someone who could match Lin Sun in the number of Tao laws. After all, it was an entire 5,000 plus Grand Daos. Every single one of them were complete Grand Daos, and every single one of them revealed the most essential and primitive profundities. Just this point alone was enough to shock the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries. The myriad Tao chessboard given by Yi So is also branded with the aura of the origin of myriad Tao. In the future, as I continue to comprehend it, I can also gain insight into more original mysteries of Tao. After leaving the origin of myriad Tao, Lin Sun shuttled through different secret realms with his hands behind his back, thinking as he walked. Next, I can condense the seedling of the chaotic tree. While Lin Sun was thinking, he had come to a secret realm where Old Toad was practicing. After all these years, Alu finally had the opportunity to break through and become a martial monarch. Furthermore, during the martial monarch tribulation, he awakened the bloodline power in his body, causing the strength of his body to become extremely monstrous. His peers were no match for him. Only Old Toad showed no sign of breaking through after all these years. Big brother. When Lin Sun came, Old Toad noticed it at the first time. He couldn't help feeling a little depressed and sighed. It still doesn't work. I can't feel the opportunity to become an emperor at all. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the quasi-emperor realm, but he couldn't wait for the opportunity to become an emperor. Seeing that Alu, Silver, Tian, and who had already become emperors, he couldn't help feeling a little impatient and worried about gains and losses. What's the hurry? The longer you settle down, the greater the achievement when you become an emperor. Lin Sun patted Old Toad on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't forget, when we first met, you said that you were unique in the world, so your father named you Jindui. Since you are unique, the opportunity to become an emperor is naturally different from others." Old Toad sneered, "Big brother, you don't need to comfort me. In any case, I've seen great storms and waves, so how could I not know about cultivation? Don't worry, no matter how many years I have to wait, no matter what I encounter, I definitely won't give up on becoming emperor." Lin Sun nodded and asked, "Then are you going to continue to cultivate or leave?" "Leave," Old Toad said without hesitation. "It's not enough to just cultivate behind closed doors. I plan to leave alone and travel to the outside world. Maybe I can find the opportunity to become an emperor." "That's good." Immediately, Lin Sun and Old Toad left together. On the way, Lin Sun called Alu, Silver, and Tian, who were exploring opportunities in various secret realms, and then they set off together and left the Green Lotus secret realm. On the top of Heart Cleansing Peak, Lin Sun set up a banquet, drank, and chatted with Old Toad and others, and told them his plan. After condensing the sapling of the chaotic tree, he would leave the mortal world and return to Kunlun ruins. In the future, it was very likely that he would not come back for a long time. After talking about his own affairs, Lin Sun asked Old Toad and others about their plans. "I'm going to travel to the outside world and look for the opportunity to become an emperor." This was Old Toad's plan, which Lin Sun already knew. He looked at Alu and others. "I'll listen to you, Martial Uncle," Alu said with a smile. "Anyway, I'm alone now." "Me too," Silver said without thinking. "Me and Silver are the same." Lil Tian still had the appearance of a shy young girl. Her big eyes were full of life, and her voice was as soft as a spring. Without waiting for Alu to speak, Lin Sun said with a smile, "All right, you don't have to say it. I know you're the same as them." Alu scratched his head and chuckled. "How about this? You guys stay in a mortal world for now." Lin Sun pondered for a moment and said, "In the upheaval of the recovery of spiritual energy, the mortal world will degenerate into a Shinshio world comparable to the primordial world. If you guys cultivate here, you'll have more chances to break through than other Emperor Realm cultivators. If you leave with me, the disadvantages will outweigh the advantages." Hearing this, Alu was fine, or rather, she had already expected Lin Sun to make such an arrangement, so she immediately nodded. Chapter 2485. Alu, Little Silver, and others were all stunned and a little reluctant. "Brother, except for Old Toad, we have all become emperors." Alu said, "Why can't we follow you to fight?" "Yes, master." Both Little Silver and Little Tian looked at Lin Sun eagerly. Lin Sun was also a little reluctant, but he still shook his head and said, "If you really want to help me, stay here and help me take care of Yuan, Shurtao sect. I don't want something bad to happen next time I return." Ahu also said on one side, "The road is long and everyone has their own needs. Since Child has made such a decision, you must have thought it through. You just be obedient." Lin Sun smiled and said, "What's more, I'm not leaving now." Little Silver and Little Tian also saw that Lin Sun had made up his mind and couldn't change it, so they inevitably felt a little disappointed. Lin Sun quickly changed the topic so that the atmosphere would not be too dull and sad. One day later, Lin Sun returned to the Green Lotus Secret Realm and began to condense the sapling of the Chaos Tree. Old Toad left alone to travel. Among all his companions, he was the only one who hadn't become an emperor, which made him realize that he couldn't wait for the opportunity to break through the realm just by practicing in seclusion. Under Ahu's advice, Alu quietly followed Old Toad and protected him in secret. In today's mortal world, except for the Forbidden City, other places were undergoing drastic changes all the time. It was extremely turbulent, and fights and conflicts could be seen everywhere. Although Old Toad was only one step away from the Emperor realm, he wasn't an emperor after all. With Alu's secret protection, even if he encountered a fatal threat, he could be safe. Little Silver and Little Tian stayed on Heart-Cleansing Peak with Ahu and served as the Supreme Elder. In fact, it was an idle position, but everyone knew that even if Lin Sun left later, Yuan Shurtao sect would still have enough power to deter the world as long as they were there. 1 year later, on the bank of the East Sea, Yuan Qingheng, dressed in a green dress and with a black hairpin, walked leisurely in a bustling city, with a pair of clear eyes full of curiosity. Along the way, countless people were stunned by her peerlessly beautiful appearance, but when they looked carefully, her graceful figure had long since disappeared. It was as graceful as a swan. I didn't expect Lin Daoyuan to be the successor of Fangsuan Mountain. Moreover, he's so famous in the myriad Dao world. On the bustling street, Yuan Qingheng said in his heart, "Granny Star, before I leave, I want to meet this person again. Miss, do you want to keep him by your side? This is not easy to handle. You also said that he is Fangsuan Mountain's inheritor." Granny Star's voice resounded in his consciousness. "I don't intend to take him in. I'm just pointing him in the right direction. It could be considered as a gift of good karma." Yuan Qingheng's fair and slender hands were behind his back. His starry eyes were clear, and his celestial appearance was picturesque. Although he was walking in the heavy traffic, there was not a trace of worldly aura. Good karma? That's possible, but remember not to have too many ties with this boy. In the eternal true world, there are many immortal emperor clans who view Fangsuan Mountain as their enemy, Granny Star reminded him. Yuan Qingheng grunted and said, "Granny Star, don't you think that Lin Daoyuan's rise to power is very interesting? When he was young, he rose to power in Xiao Empire, and now, in less than 100 years, he has already become a great emperor whose name shakes the 9 heavens. This is too unbelievable." "Miss, you are right. This world might be recovering its spiritual aura, but can't compare to the eternal true world. It's like the difference between a small pond and a vast ocean." Granny Star said, "In the eternal true world, being able to become an emperor in such a short period of time is already something rarely seen in the world. Only the immortal emperor clans who control the power of heaven rank can produce such a peerless genius. But Lin Daoyuan can become a great emperor in such a small place in such a short period of time. This is really incredible." From this, it can be seen that the foundation of Fengsuan Mountain is destined to be extraordinary. I dare to conclude that in the entire ancient path of starry sky, only Lin Daoyuan has such attainments in the path of Dao. Yuan Qingheng said, "So, I want to see what kind of storm he can cause if he can enter the eternal true world." "Miss, what are you going to do?" Granny Star asked. "Show me the way," Yuan Qingheng said casually. 7 days later, Forbidden City. Yuan Qingheng appeared alone in front of Heart-Cleansing Peak. She glanced at some descendants who were guarding the mountain gate, and then looked at the top of the mountain. Almost at the same time, Black Water Tao Body, who had been sitting on Heart-Cleansing Peak, woke up from meditation and stood up. The next moment, he appeared in front of the mountain gate out of thin air. He looked at Yuan Qingheng with a little surprise and said, "I didn't expect that Miss Yuan would take the initiative to visit me. What's the matter this time? Can't I come if I have nothing to do?" Yuan Qingheng's eyes were like rippling autumn water. She glanced at Lin Sun and said, "You don't have to be nervous. I will return to the eternal true world soon. Before I leave, I want to talk to you." "You are very welcome." Lin Sun laughed and said, "I also have a lot of things to ask you. Please come with me." As he said, he led the way. Yuan Qingheng nodded and followed him. Along the way, many descendants of Yuan Shi Tao sect were shocked. On the one hand, they were amazed by Yuan Qingheng's appearance, which was too beautiful. On the other hand, they were surprised by her origin. How could the patriarch personally greet her and lead the way? In this regard, Lin Sun did not explain. Yuan Qingheng was even more calm and composed. Not to mention this scene, in the eternal true world, even in front of the big shots of the immortal emperor clan, Yuan Qingheng had her own pride and calm. At the top of the mountain, the sea of clouds was dense, and the mountain wind was blowing. Before an ancient tree, Lin Sun and Yuan Qingheng sat opposite each other. There was tea and delicacies placed on the table between them. This place is extraordinary. It is located at the core of the origin of all Taoists. In less than 100 years, it will definitely become the most famous blessed land in this world. Yuan Qingheng sized up her surroundings. Her voice was as pleasant as the sound of flowing water. "Miss, you praise me too much." Lin Sun smiled and poured tea for her. Compared to the eternal true world, this small place is probably far inferior. Yuan Qingheng stared at Lin Sun and said, "Then do you intend to go to the eternal true world?" Lin Sun nodded and smiled. "I've been planning to do so for a long time, but I've been busy with mundane matters, so I haven't taken any action yet." Yuan Qingheng's beauty was a noble and elegant air that shone from her very bones. Even if Lin Sun was sitting opposite her, she still gave off an ethereal feeling that it was difficult to touch her. It was as if she did not belong to this world at all. When facing her, even Lin Sun had to admit that this woman was indeed very special. The confidence she exuded was something that some emperors did not possess. "Then do you know how to go there?" Yuan Qingheng asked. Lin Sun arched an eyebrow and shook his head. "I don't know yet. If that's the case, then I have come to the right place." Yuan Qingheng instantly smiled. Her fair face, which was as beautiful as a painting, was illuminated by the brilliant sunlight and gave off a soul-stirring beauty. Lin Sun was surprised. "What do you mean?" Yuan Qingheng said, "I have come to give you some pointers on how to go to the eternal true world. I would like to hear the details." Lin Sun was rather interested. Then, Yuan Qingheng told him about everything. As it turned out, there are only 2 ways to go to the other side, which was the eternal true world, from the ancient path of the galaxy or from the other universes in the universe. One was to receive them. In other words, the great forces of the eternal true world would take action and receive the powerful warriors from the other worlds into the eternal true world. But usually, the forces of the eternal true world were unwilling to do this. The reason for that was because one had to pay an extremely high price to receive them. Even a monstrous existence like the immortal imperial clan would not easily do such a thing. According to Yuan Qingheng, the price to pay to receive the cultivators from the other worlds into the eternal true world was so great that it was even greater than cultivating an emperor. Unless it was an extremely special occasion, no force would choose to receive outsiders. The second method was to challenge the great thousand battle realms and carve out a path that would lead him to the eternal true world from there. The so-called Great Thousand Battle Domains was a universe that lay between the eternal true world and the Great Thousand Worlds. It was like a path that stretched across the galaxy. There were many obstacles on the path, and it was filled with unknown dangers. Over the course of countless years, almost all the powerful people who walked out of the different universes of the Great Thousand Worlds would challenge the obstacles if they wanted to go to the eternal true world. But those who could kill their way out of the Great Thousand Battle Domains were less than 1 in 1,000. The reason was simple. The dangers in the Great Thousand Battle Domains were enough to threaten all the experts in the 9th level of the Emperor Realm. As a result, over the course of countless years, the corpses of countless great emperors have been buried on the path. Every obstacle in the Great Thousand Battle Domains was dyed red by the blood of emperors. Those who were below the Emperor Realm did not have the right to go to the Great Thousand Battle Domains. Just the journey to the Great Thousand Battle Domain was filled with dangers that could easily kill anyone below the Martial Emperor Realm. Because of this, the Great Thousand Battle Domains was also known as the Emperor's Blood Path. Those who could challenge it could enter the eternal true world and seek the Tao of eternity. If they could not, they would eventually turn into skeletons in the Great Thousand Battle Domains. Lin Sun could not help but be stunned when he understood this. This was the first time he heard that one would encounter such a dangerous test when heading to the eternal true world. This undoubtedly meant that even without the forbidden power of order covering the ancient path, it was not easy to cross the galaxy and head to the other side of the eternal true world. Then, Lin Sun remembered his eldest senior brother, third senior sister, and the other senior and junior brothers who had left a few years ago. Would they also experience the dangers of the Great Thousand Battle Domains? There were also the cultivators who had flocked to the other side of the eternal true world when the forbidden power of order had disappeared. Although there were martial emperors among them, there were many who were below the martial emperor realm. If they entered the Great Thousand Battle Domains, it was highly likely that they would die. P.S. I'll make up a new chapter tonight. It should be around 10 p.m. I haven't asked for a monthly ticket for many days. I'll pluck up my courage and ask for it. Chapter 2486. Yuan Xingheng was drinking tea in a leisurely manner. Lin Sun's reaction was within her expectations. In truth, those who had not been to the eternal world would more or less feel pressured after learning about the vast thousand battles realms. Some would even give up. Even someone as powerful as the Emperor Ancestor would have to think twice. After all, the vast thousand battles realms was too dangerous. After a while, Lin Sun looked up at Yuan Xingheng. The latter put down his teacup and asked, "How do you feel? If you want to go to the eternal world, you must go through the vast thousand battles realms?" Lin Sun asked. Yuan Xingheng said, "If they have cultivation that surpasses the Emperor Ancestor realm, it will be a piece of cake for them to go through the vast thousand battles realms." "Who set this test?" Lin Sun asked. Yuan Xingheng was stunned. She clearly did not expect Lin Sun to ask such a question. After thinking for a while, she said, "It has been like this since ancient times." Lin Sun said, "With the power of the behemoths in the eternal world, can they destroy the vast thousand battles realms?" Yuan Xingheng was stunned again. She clearly did not know how to answer. Lin Sun smiled and said, "I'm just hypothesizing. If the vast thousand battles realms are wiped out, there will be no more barriers. Then, no matter who it is, won't they be able to go to the eternal world freely?" "How is that possible?" Yuan Xingheng's clear eyes focused. "If that's the case, then all the great forces of power in the eternal true world will have to face challenges from the different universes in the Great Thousand Worlds, and countless disasters will definitely happen. At that time, the eternal true world will definitely descend into chaos." The ghost of a smile appeared on Lin Sun's lips. "Perhaps it's precisely because of what you've just said that the great Kiliacosm battle region has turned into a natural barrier since ancient times. It has blocked the footsteps of countless cultivators, and, at the same time, It has also helped the great forces of power in eternal true world kill off a lot of disasters. Yuan Qingheng was stunned and fell into silence. She had never thought about this problem in the past. Setting up a barrier to block all dangers that try to encroach on one's interests. Perhaps this is the true value of the vast Thousand Battles realms. Lin Sun seemed to be deep in thought. Whoever wants to destroy this barrier will become the enemy of the entire eternal world. Perhaps this is the reason why the vast Thousand Battles realms have been able to survive since ancient times. Yuan Qingheng couldn't help but ask, if it's really as you said, then in your opinion, what sort of strength must one possess to be able to shatter this threshold? Lin Sun said, I can't make wild guesses about this, but at the very least, they should have the power to fight against the entire eternal true world, right? Yuan Qingheng instantly smiled. Fellow Taoist, there has never been a single person in the world who could fight against the entire eternal true world. It does not matter whether it is in the past, the present, or the future. This sort of thing is destined to never happen. What a joke. The eternal true world stood above the great thousand worlds and was viewed as an eternal land. There were an unknown number of immortal emperor clans scattered there. Above the immortal emperor clan, there was the eternal god clan. Who could contend against it? If such a person truly existed, how could the eternal true world possess the title of eternal? Therefore, in Yuan Qingheng's view, Lin Sun's words were an extremely absurd assumption, which was doomed to be impossible. Lin Sun also smiled and stopped talking about this issue. If there was none before, will there be none in the future? That might not be the case. All right, I have drunk the tea and said what I wanted to say. It is time for me to leave. Yuan Qingheng stood up, her green robes fluttering in the wind. Her graceful figure was faintly discernible amidst the rising clouds, adding to her mysterious beauty. Lin Sun stood up and said, You are leaving so soon? I still have many things I would like to ask you. Yuan Qingheng snorted lightly. Everything you want to know is in the eternal true world. Why don't you go and take a look yourself? I won't be tricked by you again. Lin Sun smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm. If that is the case, then I wish you a safe journey and a safe return home. Yuan Qingheng thought for a moment. Then through a light green sachet he carried with him to Lin Sun. There's a green sparrow in this sachet. It knows all sorts of things about the great Thousand Battles realms. It is for you. Lin Sun held it in his hand. There was a strange inscription of the word Yuan embroidered on the sachet. When he held it in his hand, it was as light as a feather and emitted wisps of refreshing fragrance. Thank you very much. Mississippi. Lin Sun did not refuse. He was going to make a trip to the other side in the future anyway. If he had the help of such a treasure, it would definitely save him a lot of trouble. Yuan Qingheng hesitated for a moment, then said, This sachet was personally sewn by my grandmother. You must take good care of it. If we meet again in the eternal true world in the future, you must return it to me. Lin Sun was stunned. Yuan Qingheng had already turned around and left above the illusory cloud sea like a green divine rainbow. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Only the sachet in his hand was still emitting wisps of fragrance. After a while, Lin Sun put away the sachet. He had already vaguely guessed that Yuan Qingheng had come to ask him to make a trip to the eternal true world. However, Lin Sun was a little uncertain as to why Yuan Qingheng would do this. You gave her a sachet before you parted. The beauty has already left, but you are still in a daze. Could it be that it is difficult for you to accept the beauty's kindness? In the distance, Ahu had walked over at some point. She pursed her lips and smiled. Her bright and watery eyes had turned into a pair of crescent moons. Lin Sun was stunned for a moment. Then he immediately smiled. She and I almost became enemies. How could I have any other thoughts? Ahu said, Since ancient times, there has never been a lack of people who love and kill each other. Besides, that lady is as elegant as an orchid. Her beauty is like that of an immortal. What's rare is that she has a noble air in her bones. With one look, you can tell that she is not from an ordinary family. Which man would not like her? It is normal for you to be attracted to her. Lin Sun glared at her. You're just causing trouble. Also, didn't I say it before? Don't call me Junior Master. Ahu giggled. Her laughter was clear and melodious. In terms of looks, Ahu was in no way inferior to Yuan Qing'an. She had both the beauty of a fairy and the charm of a witch. Her unique charm had long since subdued countless men in the primeval Tao sect, causing them to fall into an uncontrollable infatuation. In fact, even some of the old men could not stand it. They did not dare to look Ahu in the eye, afraid that their Tao hearts would be confused. Fortunately, Ahu rarely met people, which was why the entire primeval Tao sect was not affected. Otherwise, with her beauty, she could definitely bring disaster to the country and people. Ahu, do you want me to find you a Tao companion? Lin Sun suddenly asked. Ahu blinked her charming and watery eyes. All right, I don't ask for much. I just want her to be comparable to you. Lin Sun thought about it seriously. That's a little difficult, but there should be such an outstanding person in the eternal true world. Ahu was stunned. Are you really serious? Lin Sun said with a smile. I don't dare to be careless when it comes to your matters. Ahu rolled her eyes and said angrily, You should think about how to arrange for Miss Jing Xian and Miss Xia Ji. Oh, by the way, now there's another lady who gave you a sachet. I want to see how capable you are and whether you can arrange for them one by one. Lin Sun was speechless. Just as he was about to say something, Ahu had already turned around and left with a smile. Lin Sun smiled and shook his head. He turned around and returned to his residence. Time flew, and another 3 years passed in a flash. On this day, in a world of origin in the Green Lotus Arcane Realm, boom! A roar that sounded like the beginning of the world resounded. Heaven and earth trembled violently, and all things shook. In a place far away, a tall figure rose into the air. It seemed like the image of a divine tree had faintly appeared behind him. Its trunk was towering into the sky, while its branches blotted out the sky and blotted out the sun. It was connected to the sky above and connected to the ground below, and a myriad of strands of divine radiance that seemed like the chaos descended and revealed the phenomena of the world. Lin Sun, who was standing in front of the divine tree, was like the only god among all the phenomena in the world. The earth-shattering rumble from before was caused by this boundlessly grand phenomenon. After a long time, the shadow of the divine tree dissipated, and the world returned to silence. Lin Sun, who was standing in the void, revealed a look of joy. It was done. After 4 years of meditation and condensation, he finally succeeded in condensing a chaotic tree sapling. At this moment, in his imperial life world, a verdant little tree was rooted at the center of the world. It was only a little over a foot tall, its trunk was only as thick as an infant's arm, and there were only a few jade-green leaves that were crystalline and translucent hanging on its branches. However, this little tree was completely suffused with surging chaotic chi that interweaved into a strange and obscure energy of the laws that flowed freely. Along with the existence of the little tree, the entire imperial life world, the mountains, rivers, lakes, seas, the sun, moon, stars, every single blade of grass, every single tree. Everything emanated a strange rhythm, and it seemed as if it possessed a life of its own. This was the chaotic tree sapling. It was condensed from the sole origin roots of the 4 divine trees, 5-colored wondrous soil, chaotic life soil, and various other peerless divine materials. It was a type of divine treasure that could be said to be rare since the ancient times until now, and it was a precious treasure that even the imperial ancestors dreamed of possessing since the ancient times until now. However, throughout the starry sky, there were very few that were capable of condensing such a divine treasure. Possessing it was equivalent to possessing the opportunity to comprehend the laws of chaos. As this sapling grew stronger and stronger, more and more laws of chaos would emerge. The most miraculous thing was that the chaotic tree sapling was extremely beneficial to consolidating one's cultivation and tempering one's foundation. As his cultivation increased, the chaotic tree sapling would grow along with it, and the chaotic chi that it transformed during its growth could similarly be fed back to his imperial life world. thus promoting Lin Sun's cultivation to a sublimation. This was a magical effect that complemented each other. Especially when the chaotic tree truly grew, it could even allow Lin Sun's imperial life world to possess the foundation of the primordial chaos and nurture all living beings. Of course, what Lin Sun looked forward to the most was actually a complete law of chaos. 4 years from a seed to a sprout, until it transformed into a sapling. Finally, I've completely fused this tree with my cultivation. In the future, sooner or later, it will cover the sky and cover the sun. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and his eyes were deep. And now it's time to leave. P.S. Update sent. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 2487. Lin Sun, who had intended to embark on the journey after condensing the seedling of the chaos tree, was hindered by an unexpected surprise. On that day, cracks appeared on the surface of the golden dragon cocoon. Crack! Crack! When Lin Sun carefully took out the golden dragon cocoon, he heard a burst of fine cracking sounds, and pieces of fragments branded with strange Dao patterns began to fall. After each fragment fell, it was like snow melting into water, disappearing without a trace. But Lin Sun couldn't care about this. He clenched his hands suddenly. His body stiffened, his eyes widened, and he stared at the golden dragon cocoon that was constantly transforming. His state of mind, which used to be as tough as a rock and as calm as snow, even in the face of life and death, trembled violently at this moment. A tension, excitement, and uneasiness that he had never experienced before suddenly appeared like a hurricane, raging in his chest, making his whole body like a tight bowstring. Crack! Crack! The fine cracking sounds were still sounding, and time seemed to be elongated and became extremely slow. Finally, Lin Sun saw the familiar figure. She lay there silently amidst an expanse of gentle and gorgeous golden divine radiance. Her jet-black hair fluttered down like a waterfall, and a wisp of a tranquil and serene glow suffused her fair, clear, and beautiful face. Zhao Jingxian. After so many years, Lin Sun only felt that his heart was about to stop when he saw the woman he liked most. His emotions were surging and rolling, and he couldn't stop at all. Originally, Lin Sun opened his mouth to speak, but the next moment he was stunned. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body was in a trance, and his eyes were fixed on Zhao Jingshuan's arms. There, a naked baby was snuggling in Zhao Jingshuan's arms, looking at him curiously with a pair of clear and dark big eyes. His pair of white and tender little feet were curled up. Although he was a newborn baby, his eyebrows and eyes were full of spirit, especially his eyes, which were very similar to his mother Zhao Jingxian. And that little nose and slightly pursed mouth were quite similar to Lin Sun's. Boom! Lin Sun felt his head explode, and his whole body trembled. How could he not understand that this little guy was the son he had been looking forward to and nervous about for many years? However, Lin Sun didn't expect that this moment would come so suddenly and so unexpectedly, leaving him completely unprepared. For a moment, he was stunned. "Yeah," a tender voice sounded. It was slightly sharp but full of energy. At the same time, a gentle and soft laugh sounded. "Look at your silly father. He doesn't even know how to speak." Lin Sun finally came back to his senses. He took a few deep breaths. Only then did he see that the golden dragon cocoon had disappeared and Zhao Jingxian had stood up. She was wearing a loose and elegant jade robe with cloud patterns. Her black hair was casually tied up with a red string. Her tall and graceful figure was more gentle and mature than before. Her pair of slender and white hands were gently hugging the child. When she looked at Lin Sun, her eyes were full of tenderness and sweetness. After so many years, the first thing she saw when she woke up was the person she had yearned for day and night. This made her extremely excited. Jingxian. Lin Sun couldn't help it anymore. He stepped forward and hugged Zhao Jingxian. But he was worried about the baby in his arms, so this hug was a little cautious. Zhao Jingxian couldn't help laughing. She looked down at the baby and said, "Call me father. Father." The baby opened his black eyes and called out in a crisp voice, Lin Sun was stunned at once and couldn't speak clearly. He can speak as soon as he is born? Zhao Jingxian blinked with a unique maternal pride. Don't you know whose child this is? How can others compare with him? In the eyes of a mother, her child was always the best in the world. Lin Sun smiled and carefully reached out his hand to touch the baby's delicate face. A strange feeling surged in his heart. Father, my mother is right. At the beginning of my birth, what I felt in the golden dragon cocoon these years has emerged clearly in my memory. The baby said crisply, although my mother and I have not woken up, we have been communicating with each other through consciousness. We have already recognized the mystery of the Tao and understood the mystery of all things in the world. Don't treat me as a child anymore. He tried to open his eyes wide and show a serious look. However, he was just a baby after all. He was delicate and spoke in a childish voice, which made him look very cute. Lin Sun's mind was in turmoil. He gently picked up the baby with both hands, put him in front of his eyes, and carefully answered and sensed. After a while, he had to admit that the child born by him and Jingxian really couldn't be measured by common sense. It was too special. In the young body, there was a complete spiritual vein, which was the first stage of the devouring abyss talent, exactly the same as Lin Sun's when he was a child. The blood flowing in the baby's body was branded with the pure blood of the true dragon, which was vast, thick, and brilliant. He had just been born, but he already possessed two kinds of heaven-defying innate powers. Even the bones, skin, internal organs, meridians, and acupoints of the baby were all surging with mysterious Taoist rhyme and light. My husband, when this child was in my womb, he was soaked in the dragon pool of our clan and nurtured in the ancestral dragon source. Later, he was given a complete talent by our ancestor, Zhao Jingxian said softly. Over the years, I often communicate with him through consciousness and tell him about the mystery of the Tao and all things. Although he is just born, he is indeed not comparable to ordinary children. Lin Sun nodded, held the baby in his arms, and said softly, I don't care about this. Anyway, he is our child. Even if he is a monster, he is still our child. Father, I'm not a monster, the baby said in a childish voice. Lin Sun smiled and intimately touched his face, saying, Jingxian, have you named him? Only a pet name, baby, Zhao Jingxian said. As for the name, it is more appropriate for you, the father, to name him. Lin Sun immediately thought about it. At the same time, the baby, who was temporarily called Lin Bao Bao, became nervous. His eyes rolled, as if he was worried that his father would give him a bad name. He was born extraordinary, possesses extraordinary natural talent, and is peerlessly intelligent. If placed in the annals of the ancient times until now, he can already be said to be a natural-born cultivator. After a long time, Lin Sun said, but this is both his advantage and his burden. When he grows up in the future, it is very easy for him to have problems with his temperament. Zhao Jingxian was stunned and said angrily, this is our child. As long as we teach him carefully, how can he go astray? Father, I won't become a bad person, Lin Bao Bao said crisply. Lin Sun smiled, but he couldn't help thinking of his fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi. He was also a natural cultivator, known as the most intelligent and talented person in the world. But the growth of his fourth senior brother changed his temperament greatly. Lin Sun didn't want his child to repeat the same mistake. Well, let me think about it, and then name this boy. Lin Sun thought about it, but he couldn't make up his mind. Finally, he decided to wait. Okay. Zhao Jingxian nodded. Then, the couple whispered their feelings to each other. It was several hours later when Lin Bao Bao fell asleep in Lin Sun's arms. It couldn't be helped. This boy was extraordinarily energetic. Husband, did you miss me all these years? Zhao Jingshuan's eyes were like water as she asked in a low voice, filled with deep affection. Every day, Lin Sun smiled. The more he looked at Lin Bao Bao, who was sleeping in his arms, the more he liked her. Then do you think you should compensate me? Zhao Jingxian snuggled up to him. Her graceful and slender body became soft, and her breath was like orchids. Lin Sun was stunned and said with emotion, "You and your son have been wrong these years." Then he looked at Lin Bao Bao again and said with a smile, "Now I know that the taste of being a father is really different." Zhao Jingxian suddenly snorted, straightened up, and stared at Lin Sun. "Now that you have a child, you don't even look at me?" Lin Sun was stunned and hurriedly said, "I don't dare. It's just that I have just seen the child. It's inevitable that I—" Before he finished speaking, the child in his arms was taken away by Zhao Jingxian. "It's not too late to see the child later. Now look at me carefully." She put Lin Bao Bao into the treasure, and then untied the red rope that bound her hair. She stared at Lin Sun with watery eyes. Compared to the past, the current Zhao Jingxian revealed a graceful and unique mature charm. Her chest was plump and full, her slender waist was slender, and the simple and elegant jade robe she wore was utterly unable to conceal her extremely tall and slender figure that could be said to be graceful. "Do I look good?" Zhao Jingxian asked. Lin Sun nodded without hesitation. "Yes. I'm afraid that even the fairies in the sky are inferior to you." Zhao Jingxian sneered. "You don't mean it." Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. He was a little confused about Zhao Jingshuan's abnormal behavior at this moment. He couldn't help but ask tentatively, "Jingxian, are you angry?" "Why should I be angry? Idiot." Zhao Jingxian glared at him fiercely, and then burst into laughter, like a flower bud blooming after the rain, dazzling. Lin Sun was confused by her laughter. What was an idiot? Seeing that Lin Sun still didn't understand, Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but sigh. "It seems that you didn't miss me at all these years." An idea flashed through Lin Sun's mind, and he couldn't help laughing. He held Zhao Jingxian in his arms and walked away. "What are you doing?" Zhao Jingxian was a little flustered. "What do you think?" Lin Sun said fiercely. "You just want to do something, don't you?" Zhao Jingshuan's jade-like white face suddenly turned red and hot. She buried her head in Lin Sun's chest, and her body was soft and fragrant like warm jade. "You bastard!" She spat fiercely. "If I weren't a bastard, I would be an idiot." "Really? You also know that you are an idiot." In a slightly charming and intimate conversation, Lin Sun had disappeared in the sky with her in his arms. The sunset was like fire in the sky, and it seemed that she was blushing. P.S. The second part was a little late, and I got stuck. Chapter 2488. Half a month later, Lin Sun appeared on Heart Cleansing Peak with Zhao Jingxian and baby Lin, which attracted a lot of attention for a while. "Wow, you're so cute." Ahu pinched the little girl's face. His eyes were shining and his voice changed. "Little master, I'll protect you from now on." Little Silver said with a smile with his arms crossed. Little Tian nodded again and again. Over 10 years had passed, and Shi Linlang was already a young woman. She wore a light blue dress, and she was young and beautiful. At this moment, she couldn't help but move forward and embrace baby Lin in her arms, and then she kissed the little fellow's forehead with a doting expression. "Little brother baby is so beautiful." Everyone laughed. Baby Lin had a delicate face and got the advantages of her parents. Anyone who saw her would like her. But baby Lin kept struggling in Shi Linlong's arms and shouted, "Miss, you're squeezing me." Everyone was stunned and had a strange look in their eyes. Shi Linlang blushed and quickly let go of her hand. She handed baby Lin to Zhao Jingxian and stammered, "Isn't baby Lin just born? Why can you talk?" Baby Lin said disdainfully, "It's easy to talk. I've recognized all kinds of Tao before I was born. I'm much better than you." Everyone's eyes were fixed on her, and they were amazed. The natural saint was just like that. Zhao Jingxian knocked on baby Lin's forehead and scolded, "You're so rude. If you dare to disrespect me again, I'll punish you." "Oh," Lin Bao Bao said with a pitiable expression, "Big sister, it was my fault earlier. You cannot forgive me. Otherwise, my mother will beat me." Shi Linlang couldn't help laughing. "How can I care about a child like you?" Baby Lin also laughed. Whoosh! The big black bird came and looked at baby Lin with fiery eyes. He said, "Little girl, I've calculated that you and I are destined to meet. If you're willing to worship me as your teacher." "See this black pot? It'll be yours in the future. Baby Lin glanced at the black pot on the big black bird's back and rolled his eyes. You're so bad. You should take this black pot. The big black bird was exasperated and muttered, You're just like your father. The crowd couldn't help but burst into laughter. In the distance, Lin Sun walked over, followed by Su Bai and Gu Shi. Seeing this happy scene, he could not help but laugh. In his heart, he was feeling more and more reluctant. Originally, he had already arranged everything and planned to leave after condensing the chaos tree sapling. However, baby Lin's birth forced him to change his plans. In fact, he was even a little reluctant to leave. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. Heart-cleansing peak. A 5-year-old boy was lying lazily in a cluster of flowers. His eyes were slightly squinted, and the one acting as his pillow was a ferocious black striped tiger. However, this ferocious black tiger was now as obedient as a kitten, and its eyes were even filled with flattery. The boy was called Lin Fan. The name was given by his father, Lin Sun. He was born extraordinary, but he named it ordinary, which actually contained a kind of expectation of Lin Sun. He hoped that even if the little guy had great abilities in the future, he would never forget that all living beings in the world were born differently. It didn't matter whether they were ordinary or extraordinary. What mattered was how he understood the world, and all living beings. Ordinary. It was a very common name. Lin Fan complained and ridiculed it more than once. Even Zhao Jingxian and other relatives and friends couldn't bear to look at it when they learned the name Lin Sun had given him. A little fellow with such heaven-defying talent, such outstanding aptitude, and such an intelligent temperament was definitely a rare sight. Yet, his name was actually mortal. This was too mediocre. But Lin Sun didn't change his mind. His name was also ordinary, but it contained a kind of expectation of his mother, Luo Qingxuan. Lin Sun also hoped to let his son know what the word ordinary meant to an extraordinary person like him. Little master, why don't you play? Silver appeared in the distance. Are you talking about playing some childish games with those little brats? That's too boring. Lin Fan asked weakly. Silver was stunned. Then what do you want to play? 5 years later, Lin Fan was already 5 years old. He showed unimaginable wisdom and talent. No matter what he learned, he could understand it easily, which was amazing and caused many people to marvel. It was really inappropriate for him to play with some children of the same age. Lin Fan said, On God of heart-cleansing peak, and see how wide the sky is, how thick the earth is, how many ways there are, all the phenomena in the sky, the ups and downs of the world, and he said a lot in one breath. And the more he spoke, the more excited and longing he became. He sprang to his feet, his eyes darting around furtively before he lowered his voice and said telepathically, Little Silver, can you sneak me out of here? Silver shook his head quickly. No, you're too young. Lin Fan suddenly wailed and lay back to the flowers weakly. I'm 5 years old. I'm not young. Now I finally understand why my father named me Ordinary. He wanted me to live an ordinary life. In the distance, Lin Sun saw this scene. He couldn't help raising his eyebrows and said, Jingxian, what do you think if I seal this boy's talent with a secret method and let him hone and cultivate alone? Zhao Jingshuan's heart tightened, and she said, Fan is only 5 years old. He seems to be intelligent, but he is still a child after all. Aren't you suppressing his nature by doing this? Child. Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. He is not comparable to ordinary children. Besides, it's also a test for me to seal his talent. When he experiences more things, he can open a layer of seal every time he goes through the tempering and get the matching power. In this way, he can deeply understand that any power, whether it is inborn or acquired, needs to have the matching temperament. You know that temperament is the most important thing on the road of Tao. Zhao Jingxian hesitated and said, But I'm afraid Fan will suffer a lot for this. Haven't you and I suffered enough? Lin Sun sneered. What's more, don't underestimate this kid. I'm afraid he already knows that not only his talent, but his background is also different. In the past 5 years, Lin Sun had been accompanying Zhao Jingxian and the child. He had long seen Lin Fan's every move in the past 5 years. Overall, Lin Fan was too precocious. His temperament was not comparable to ordinary children. Sometimes his thoughts were even worse than some adults. His so-called boring was sometimes more of a disdainful attitude. Lin Sun was very clear that if he didn't find a way to temper Lin Fan, there would be problems with his temperament. Think about it. A child was born extraordinary, talented, intelligent, and his father was the first great emperor in 100,000 years. His mother was a descendant of the true dragon clan. The elders around him, such as Ahu, Little Silver, and Little Tian, were all emperors. The entire Yuanshi Dao sect even regarded him as a treasure in their hands. Under such circumstances, he was doted on by all. In the past 5 years, Lin Fan rarely encountered any small setbacks, let alone ups and downs. His temperament couldn't get the necessary experience and precipitation at all. Even if it's to temper him, you don't have to seal his talent, do you? Zhao Jingxian was still worried. Lin Sun smiled, "Don't worry." With that, he appeared in front of Lin Fan. "Want to go out for experience?" Lin Fan stood up abruptly, raised his little face, and said honestly, "It's not a normal thought." As he grew up, he had an instinctive reverence for his father. "How about I seal your talent, and then let you go?" Lin Sun said. Lin Fan smiled brightly and said, "I have long guessed that my father will take some measures to temper me, so I have already thought it through." Lin Sun nodded and sighed with emotion in his heart. He could think of this at the age of 5. In the future, this kid would become more and more monstrous. "Go and comfort your mother," Lin Sun said. "Okay." Lin Fan cried out and ran away happily. At this moment, he finally looked like a child. An uncut jade is worthless. I would rather you be an ordinary child and live a peaceful life. Lin Sun murmured in his heart. But since you are born this way, you are destined to bear the tempering that ordinary people can't face. Only in this way will you not go astray. On this day, Lin Sun used a secret method to seal Lin Fan's talent with a unique method. He didn't tell anyone about it, except Zhao Jingxian. On the same night, Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, and Lin Fan had a dinner together. Zhao Jingxian prepared a sumptuous meal. While eating, Lin Sun said casually, "Fan, my father will leave soon and may not come back for a long time." Lin Fan was startled. There was no reluctance, no astonishment. Instead, he pondered for a moment and nodded seriously. "I understand. With father's cultivation, if it wasn't necessary, you definitely wouldn't leave me and mother behind." With that, he smiled brightly at Zhao Jingxian. "Mother, don't worry. I will accompany you well. In the future, let me protect you." Zhao Jingxuan's eyes were red. She rubbed Lin Fan's little head and said, "You have a conscience, unlike your father who is leaving after only 5 years." Lin Sun was a little embarrassed. Lin Fan said with a smile, "Father, my mother is really reluctant to let you leave. Why don't you take her with you? Don't even think about it." Before Lin Sun said anything, Zhao Jingxian had reached out and twisted Lin Fan's ear. The latter grimaced in pain and gasped. No one knew a son better than his mother. How could she not know that this boy was eager for them to leave, which meant that he had no restraint and could have a good time? "Father, save me!" Lin Fan screamed, tears almost falling down. Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. No matter how smart he was, he couldn't escape from being punished by his parents. "What are you laughing at? Do you think that since you're about to leave, you'll be able to wander around freely and freely outside?" Zhao Jingxian looked at him coldly. Lin Sun's smile froze. He and Lin Fan looked at each other. Both father and son felt sad. "P.S. I just wrote some heartwarming plot, but you said it was too shallow." Chapter 2489. Lin Sun was going to leave. This news was no longer a secret among the core relatives and friends. Everyone was a little reluctant to leave, but they knew that if it weren't for their son, Lin Sun might have left 5 years ago. This is the boundary key to open the secret realm of heart. During the period of time after I leave, if there is any danger that can't be resolved, take all the people of Yuanshi Tao sect to the ultimate ruins. On the top of Heart-Cleansing Peak, Lin Sun handed the boundary, key handed over by Ling Xuanzi, to Ahu. Ahu put it away carefully. Among these treasures, there are the origin Tao crystals and some other useless treasures I have collected over the years. Granddad Zhong, you keep them. Lin Sun handed another storage jade talisman to Lin Zhong. Young master, don't worry, Lin Zhong said solemnly. These are the formation discs and formation diagrams for activating the Tao Death Heavenfall Grand Formation. Little Silver, little Tion, the two of you take care of it together. Remember, this formation's might is extremely formidable, and it can only be activated when the lower realms have transformed to the point of being able to accommodate the energy of the Ancestor Realm. Lin Sun handed the formation plate and diagram to Silver and Tion. Before, he had told Little Five to rearrange the formation of falling heaven on Heart Cleansing Peak. With this formation, it was enough to protect Heart Cleansing Peak from the attack of Ancestor Realm. Soon, after arranging all kinds of matters, Lin Sun stayed alone with Jing Xian and his son for a while. Fan, remember not to make your mother angry when I'm away. Otherwise, I won't spare you. Lin Sun looked at his son Lin Fan. Lin Fan said seriously, Father, as long as I'm here, no one in the world dares to make mother angry. Lin Sun nodded and looked at Zhao Jingxian, who looked a little sad. He couldn't help but feel sorry in his heart. He glanced at Lin Fan, and the little guy turned away. After that, he hugged Zhao Jingxian and said softly, Even though I'm about to leave, I've left a strand of willpower here. Even though it's just willpower, it carries a portion of my memories and strength. If anything troublesome happens in the future, you can awaken my willpower and bring Fan away with you. As he said, he handed a talisman to Zhao Jingxian. Zhao Jingxian took the communication talisman, and her eyes suddenly reddened. Then, when will you return? It's hard to say. Lin Sun sighed. The path to the Tao was long, and he probably wouldn't know what day it was when he returned. Zhao Jingxian looked up at Lin Sun's handsome face and said seriously, Fan and I will wait for you to come back. Lin Sun agreed. On the same day, Lin Sun left quietly. Other than his relatives and friends, he did not alarm anyone in the primordial Tao sect. The news of his departure was also completely sealed. In the Forbidden City, Lin Sun walked leisurely alone. The streets were bustling with traffic and pedestrians, but no one noticed Lin's existence. In a flash, he passed by the Green Deer School, the commune of spiritual tattooists, and the observatory, which had changed into a new appearance. After leaving the Forbidden City, he walked among the mountains and rivers, walked through the vast land, and passed through the mist city of the southwest province. At that time, when he was young, he met Lu Qingyan here by chance. He walked through Donglin town, where he and Xia Ji had parted. Walking through the old place of the bloodthirsty camp, the stone tablet inscribed with Xiao flower is invincible because of bloodshed, and the empire lives forever because of war was still there. Walking through the 3,000 mountains, Feiyun village had long disappeared in the upheaval of the recovery of spiritual energy. Between the mountains and rivers, it had become the territory of various monster forces. After standing here for a long time, Lin Sun walked away. The past was like smoke, untraceable. Soon, Lin Sun came to a collapsed and withered ruin, which had been deserted for a long time. It was originally a mine prison. When he was young, he grew up here with Master Lu. This place was branded with his childhood memories. The culprit who had destroyed this place with one hand had long been killed by Lin Sun. But Master Lu, he still didn't know where he was. After a long time, Lin Sun took a deep breath, and his black eyes became firm. This time he must settle everything. He flicked the end of his hair. The rectangular bell hanging on the end of his hair seemed to wake up from silence, and said, Are you leaving? Lin Sun nodded. Senior, please show me the way. Okay. With a buzz, the rectangular bell turned into a stream of light and flew up. On this day, more than 20 years after returning to the mortal world, Lin Sun set foot on the journey again. Heart-cleansing peak. Mother, father has left. Let's go back, Lin Fan said in a crisp voice. Zhao Jingxian had been standing there for a long time, which made him a little worried. Fan, your father's gone. What about you? When will you go out to travel? Me? Lin Fan rolled his eyes and said tentatively, Why don't we do it today? Suddenly, a scream sounded. Zhao Jingxian pulled the little guy's ear and scolded him fiercely. One old and one young. You two have no conscience. In the distance, little Silver and others turned their heads sensibly, but they were all a little disappointed. 3 days later, Kunlun ruins. Walking along the Fairy River, Lin Sun was familiar with the road and soon came to the area where the Dao-suppressing cliff was located. The rectangular bell led the way in front, offsetting the raging storm of the Great Way, so that Lin Sun arrived near the Dao-suppressing cliff without any danger. Woo woo woo, the broken power of the Great Way was like a black dragon, constantly churning in the void. It was the same as when Lin Sun left. Lin Sun stepped straight up the Dao-suppressing cliff, but when he arrived at the top of the mountain, he only saw Big Yellow lying there alone, sleeping soundly. Not to mention Zhong Xiao. Even she was not here. Lin Sun was stunned. When he left, Zhong Xiao, the second senior brother, was sitting here. Although he was seriously injured, he still had the power to suppress Shi Tiandi. According to Zhong Xiao, it would take at least 100 years to completely eliminate Shi Tiandi. At that time, Big Yellow and she were worried that Zhong Xiao would be disturbed when suppressing Shi Tiandi, so they stayed to protect him. But now, Big Yellow was the only one left. Boy, you're finally here. Big Yellow, who was sleeping soundly, raised his eyelids and muttered vaguely. Then he got up and stretched himself. What's going on? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Big Yellow yawned and said, Don't be nervous. Everyone is fine. Look at this first. With a toss of its paw, a strange talisman flew into Lin Sun's hand. Buzz as Lin Sun poured his strength into the talisman. A light curtain suddenly emerged. The scene of the Dao-suppressing cliff was reflected in the light curtain. Zhong Xiao, the second senior brother, was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed and his face pale. Big Yellow was squatting on one side. She was sitting cross-legged on the other side. Everything seemed to be peaceful, but with a roar, a majestic and dazzling figure suddenly emerged between heaven and earth. It was a man in cyan armor, carrying a silver spear on his back. His long white hair was tied up in a bun, revealing a handsome face. His eyes were intertwined with strange golden lightning, and there were images of the sky collapsing and the sun and moon falling in them, which was extremely terrifying. When this man appeared, the torrent of the great wave fragments raging between heaven and earth was suppressed by his power. This scene immediately awakened Big Yellow, she, and the second senior brother. The three of them showed a dignified expression, because the man's body shockingly flowed with strands of terrifying energy of order that seemed like they were eternal. However, to everyone's surprise, that handsome man in azure armor with snow-white hair knelt on one knee in the air at this moment. Then he cupped his fist and lowered his head to Shi. Then he said, This subordinate is Jun Fenglai. I have received orders to bring young Miss home. Shi, the second senior brother, and Big Yellow were all stunned by his words. Shi, in particular, suddenly stood up and stared at the white-haired man with his clear eyes. He seemed to recall something, and his aura fluctuated. How did you find me? She asked. When Miss set foot on the immortal path, you will awaken the true life seal in your body, and the ancestral tablet in the clan will sense it. It's with this aura that I found you all the way here. The white-haired man who called himself Jun Fenglai said in a deep voice. He knelt down on one knee and bowed his head, showing absolute respect. This was very unbelievable. According to Lin Sun's speculations, such a person had probably surpassed the ancestor realm long ago and possessed immortal karma. But at this moment, he was so respectful, not concealing his absolute respect for Shi at all. I see, she murmured. She seemed to recall something. Miss, please depart immediately. The elders of the clan are waiting for your return, Jun Fenglai said in a deep voice. What if I don't go with you? She asked. Jun Fenglai was silent for a moment before he said, Before I came, the clan instructed me to bring Miss back no matter what. I hope Miss won't make things difficult for me. So if I don't go, you'll forcefully take me away? She continued to ask. Jun Fenglai remained silent and did not deny it. The second senior brother, Zhong Xiao, opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but she shook her head and stopped him. Not long ago, I had a feeling that something might happen. Sure enough, it's as I expected. As she spoke, she looked at June Fonlai and said, "Kill that person at the foot of the mountain." Yes. June Fonlai stood up. His majestic and dazzling figure was like an immortal heavenly venerate, radiating a terrifying and boundless might. At this moment, Shi Tiandi, who was suppressed at the foot of the mountain, roared, "I'm the sixth elder of the immortal Luo clan. If you kill me." Before he could finish speaking, June Fonlai had already made a move and pressed his palm forward. Boom! A dazzling green palm print covered the sky, carrying with it a myriad of immortal lights as it rumbled down from the sky. In the blink of an eye, Shi Tiandi, who was suppressed at the foot of the mountain, was killed. His body and soul were destroyed. This scene also caused the second senior brother and Big Yellow's pupils to shrink. To the second senior brother, Shi Tiandi could not be considered powerful. The only thing that made the second senior brother afraid was the forbidden power of order that Shi Tiandi controlled. But no matter what, Shi Tiandi was an existence that could intimidate all the starry skies. Yet, he was killed in the blink of an eye. This was too shocking. Chapter 2490. Even Lin Sun was shocked when he saw this scene, and his face changed slightly. So strong. But soon, Lin Sun calmed down and figured out the reason. He had learned about the division of order power from Yuan Qingheng, so he could tell at a glance that the order power controlled by June Fonlai was of a higher level than the order power of Thunder of the Earth rank that Shi Tiandi controlled. In addition, Shi Tiandi had been suppressed by second senior brother for many years and was too weak to move. It could be said that it was second senior brother's suppression that allowed June Fonlai to kill Shi Tiandi so easily. Of course, even so, it was undeniable that June Fonlai was really strong. In a head-on confrontation, Shi Tiandi might not be a match for June Fonlai. Second senior brother Zhong Xiu also saw this. Although he looked much more relaxed, he still looked at June Fonlai with a solemn expression. Obviously, Zhong Xiu was seriously injured at that time, and he had deduced that even he might not be a match for June Fonlai in that situation. However, such a man with such a terrifying cultivation had absolute respect for Shi. It could be imagined that Shi's real identity was absolutely extraordinary. "Miss, please set off." After killing Shi Tiandi, June Fonlai spoke again. From beginning to end, he did not look at second senior brother and Goldie. "Wait a moment." She looked at Zhong Xiu and Goldie. "I finally remember that I come from the other side, from a place that stands at the top of the world. Immortal." She suddenly closed her mouth, shook her head, and said, "Tell Lin Sun for me that he doesn't need to look for me. If fate allows it, we may meet again in the future." After saying that, she turned around and left. Second senior brother got up and watched June Fonlai, who was in cyan armor and carrying a silver spear, leave with Shi. He did not speak for a long time. The scene disappeared. It took Lin Sun a long time to recover from the scene and said, "When did these things happen?" Goldie said, 10 years ago. "So, she has recovered her past memory?" Lin Sun thought. Big Yellow answered, "Isn't that obvious? If she didn't leave willingly, how could Master and I have watched her being taken away?" Then, he clicked his tongue in admiration. I really didn't expect that this Miss Shi's origin would be so extraordinary. She could make an immortal realm expert call her subordinate and be so respectful. It's the first time I've seen something like this. It could be considered an eye-opener." Lin Sun said, "The power of order that June Fonlai controls is most likely above the heaven rank. In the Permitha eternal world, such a family would be at the top of the immortal emperor clans. Forget you, even I didn't expect Shi's background to be so complicated." Big Yellow was surprised. "You seem to know a lot about Higgin." Lin Sun casually explained the experience of meeting Yuan Qingheng, and then asked, "Where is the second senior brother?" Big Yellow could not help but sigh at the mention of Zhong Xiu. It responded weakly, "My master left." "Gone?" Lin Sun was stunned. "Where to? Where else?" "The Permithal world, of course." Big Yellow said, "My master has guarded the dark world for countless years. If not for waiting for the nirvana of freedom to descend, he would have gone to the Permitha world a long time ago. Now that Heavenly Emperor Shur is dead, the forbidden power of order covering the starry sky is as good as non-existent. Lin Sun said, "Is the second senior brother also going to the boundless thousand battle realms?" No, the second senior brother's cultivation has probably touched the mystery of immortality. It won't be difficult for him to enter the eternal world. Speaking of this, he looked at Big Yellow and asked, "What about you? Where do you plan to go?" "Master asked me to guard the dark world." Big Yellow's voice was low, and he said helplessly, he said that the Permitha world is not some paradise, but a dangerous place. "If I follow you there, it will be more harm than good." Lin Sun thought for a while and said, "The second senior brother's arrangement is good for you. When he has a stable footing in the future, he will definitely come back." Big Yellow rolled his eyes. "Do I need you to comfort me?" It raised its paw and tossed, and a strange bronze box with cloud patterns appeared. It handed it to Lin Sun. "This is the order power of nirvana of freedom. Master asked me to return it to you." Lin Sun was stunned, but he accepted it. He already understood that the reason Big Yellow stayed here was to wait for him to return. "Let's go. There's nothing to stay in the Kunlun ruins," Big Yellow said. Lin Sun nodded. Immediately, Wu Ju Bell led the way and sent Lin Sun and Big Yellow out of the extremely dangerous area. However, just as Lin Sun and Big Yellow were about to leave, Wu Ju Bell suddenly spoke and chose to stay. It was born in the Kunlun ruins, so it was reasonable for it to choose to stay. Lin Sun did not force it. "Little friend, do you already know that whether it's the Kunlun ruins or the ultimate ruins, they suffered a great calamity a long time ago?" Wu Ju Bell said before they parted. "I've heard of it," Lin Sun nodded. "The treasure refining source cauldron was destroyed under this calamity, and the nameless forbidden area appeared at that time. Even the Tao suppression cliff underwent a change under this calamity, causing the power of the myriad Tao to shatter." Wu Ju Bell said, "Before we part, I have a presumptuous request. I hope that one day you can find out the truth of that great calamity." Lin Sun nodded. He also wanted to know what kind of calamity the starry sky ancient path had experienced a long time ago to cause the origin order power of the starry sky to collapse. Even the origin of the Kunlun ruins and the ultimate ruins had been lost. What was the truth behind this? The only thing Lin Sun could be sure of was that it was precisely because of the collapse of the origin order power of the starry sky that the starry sky ancient path had declined and its ranking in the colossal world had plummeted. A day later, in a vast universe on the starry sky ancient path, Lin Sun and Big Yellow's figures appeared one after another. The forbidden order power has indeed lost control, and there's no longer any deterrence. Lin Sun immediately sensed that something was different. The forbidden order power that enveloped Zhou Su seemed to have fallen into a state of silence, as if it had no master. Shur Tiendi is dead, and the Permitha Luo clan hasn't sent any experts here for the past 10 years. In my opinion, the Luo clan has already sensed that something is amiss after losing 2 important figures in a row. Big Yellow analyzed, or the Luo family is going through something urgent, so they won't be able to spare any manpower for a while. After all, it had been 10 years. If the Permitha Luo clan found out about the death of Heavenly Emperor Shur, how could they possibly remain indifferent? But up until now, they hadn't sent anyone over. This could only prove that something had happened. Lin Sun nodded. "Are you really going to do that? Are we going to the other side now?" Big Yellow could not help but ask. On the way back, it had heard about this from Lin Sun. "Not bad." Lin Sun nodded again, looking calm and composed. Not long ago, when the Black Water Tao form was deducing the bronze box left by Master Lu, it found a line of well-hidden words in the restrictive power of the seals. "Your mother has awakened her memory and decided to go back. But because she is worried about your safety, she specifically told you not to look for the box before you open it." The strokes were vigorous and unrestrained, which was exactly Master Lu's handwriting. It was this discovery that made Lin Sun decide to go to the other side. Even though Master Lu had told him not to search for the other side before opening the bronze box, Lin Sun was not sure how long it would take for him to reach the other side after opening the box. After all, there was still a natural moat before the other side, the vast thousand battlefield. Lin Sun planned to continue to study and analyze the seal on the bronze box on the way to the other side. It would be great if he could open the box before he reached the other side. Even if he couldn't open it, there was nothing to worry about. After all, he had learned that the eternal world was unimaginably vast, and the Luo family was just one of the immortal emperor clans on the other side. Lin Sun did not believe that the Luo family could find him as soon as he reached the other side. In fact, Lin Sun had another conjecture. Master Lu and Luo Qingxuan did not know that he was now a 5th-level Emperor Realm Juing. Moreover, he had been meditating in the mortal world in the past few years, and his cultivation had already reached the peak of the consummate realm. He was only one step away from the 6th-level Emperor Realm. Well, since you have made up your mind, I will not try to persuade you anymore. But be careful. It is said that the Eternal Land has existed for a long time, thousands of times longer than the Starry Sky Ancient Path. It is said that it has experienced the collapse of many eras, and there is even an eternal God there. Big Yellow warned. Lin Sun smiled, of course. He had heard from Yuan Qingheng that there were eternal gods who stood at the top of the world in the eternal world. They controlled the power of the divine order and were unimaginably powerful. How can I not know your character? No matter where you go, you'll definitely cause a storm of blood. However, this is tempering. The reason you're able to obtain your current accomplishments is inseparable from the slaughter and blood you've experienced. Big Yellow said, I only hope that you will not force yourself. If you really can't defeat your opponent, you can just return to the Starry Sky Ancient Path. It is not embarrassing. Lin Sun nodded with a smile. Big Yellow seemed to feel that he had said too much. He waved his paw. Let's go. He turned around and left without any hesitation. Big Yellow, Lin Sun said, if someone bullies you in the future, remember to tuck your tail between your legs. I will avenge you when I come back. Big Yellow said grumpily, go, 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 go. Lin Sun laughed, turned around and left. On this day, Big Yellow returned to the dark world and silently replaced his master, Zhong Xiu, guarding the Bronze Sparrow Tower. As for Lin Sun, he embarked on a journey to the other side of the starry sky. P.S. There will be another update tonight. Seeking monthly votes. Library of Literature. Chapter 2491. The vast universe arc sped through the vast starry sky. On the bow of the ark, Lin Sun lazily reclined in a rocking chair, his eyes slightly narrowed. Although the vast universe arc was a sacred treasure, it had accompanied Lin Sun for so many years that he had developed feelings for it and was reluctant to abandon it. How long will it take to reach the gate of a vast thousand realms? Lin Sun asked. On the table next to him stood a green sparrow. Its eyes were intelligent, its feathers were bright and beautiful, and its claws were snow white and translucent. This was the green sparrow that Yuan Qingheng had given him. It had always been sealed in the light green fragrance bag embroidered with the word Yuan. The green sparrow combed its wings with its beak and said in a crisp voice, very long. According to the speed of this broken ship, it will take at least a year. Broken ship? Obviously, this green sparrow looked down on the vast universe Arkansas. The arrogance in its manner and tone was just like its master, Yuan Qingheng. Lin Sun smiled and did not say anything else. The gate of a vast thousand realms was the gateway to the vast thousand battles domain. There were a total of 8 such gateways, and they were located in different regions of the vast thousand domains. Emperor realm figures from different universes of the vast thousand domains had to pass through these 8 gates to enter the vast thousand battles domain. What Lin Sun had asked before was the gate of a vast thousand realms that was closest to the ancient path of the starry sky. Lin Sun did not speak, and the green sparrow was also too lazy to speak. It combed its feathers, occasionally shaking its neck and glancing at the starry sky outside. A man, a bird, and a ship were constantly moving forward in the vast starry sky. Along the way, they also encountered some cultivators, most of them riding on incomparably huge boundary ships, shuttling through the starry sky. Occasionally, they would also encounter some Emperor Realm figures traversing through the void, but it was only a glimpse. In short, only those who truly traveled through the starry sky would understand the vastness of the universe. One ancient path of the starry sky encompassed 9 major starfields, and each starfield encompassed countless worlds and planes. Ordinary cultivators would exhaust their entire lifespan and still not be able to walk out of a world, let alone travel through the starry sky. Moreover, the starry sky was not peaceful. There were many forces of starry sky pirates, like locusts, and specially intercepting boundary ships that traveled through different worlds. Besides all of these, there were numerous terrifying natural disasters scattered throughout the starry sky. For example, space-time turbulences, galactic storms, black holes of flowing light, groups of meteors, and so on and so forth. Not to mention ordinary cultivators. Even imperial emperors could only stay far away from such a terrifying natural disaster. However, for Lin Sun, these were nothing. The only thing that bothered him was that the long journey was a little boring. Tower of Endless, Broken Blade, Abyssal Sword Cauldron, Reincarnation Sword Case, Insignificance Bow. On the way, Lin Sun counted his belongings. Most of the treasures collected over the years were left on Heart-Cleansing Peak. At this time, he only carried some necessary treasures with him. Something worthy of mentioning was that along with absorbing and refining the energy of the Phoenix Flames of Order in these past few years, the Abyssal Sword Cauldron had silently undergone a transformation. No matter if it was in appearance or might, it was much stronger than before. Lin Sun also stored the lotus-shaped power of the Order of Nirvana into the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. According to his speculation, the Phoenix Flames of Order should be about the 5th grade of the Earth rank, which was not too bad, but not too powerful. However, the power of Order was the power of Order after all. It was beyond the Ancestor realm, and ordinary Emperor ancestors couldn't get it at all. The power of Order of Nirvana was actually the original power of Order of Starry Sky Ancient Path, and its grade was far above the rank, above the Phoenix Flames of Order. It could even compete with the Thunder Order of Luo family's 8th grade of the Earth rank. Lin Sun suspected that the rank of the Order of Nirvana was very likely to be above the Thunder Order of Luo family. Of course, this was just his conjecture. Lin Sun's understanding of the power of Order was still too vague and general. He only knew how it was, but didn't know why it was. One was that his cultivation had not reached the point where he could comprehend the power of Order. The other was that the power of Order he had seen was too little after all. With my current cultivation, I'm not afraid of the Emperor ancestors. But if I meet the immortal realm, I'm afraid I can only hide. Lin Sun fell into deep thought. Fortunately, there are very few people in this world who can surpass the Ancestor realm. It won't be easy to meet them. However, if I wait until I enter the Eternal World and want to fight against the Luo family, I'm afraid my current strength won't be enough. In these years, Lin Sun's cultivation progress could not be said to be fast, but every step he took was steady and steady. On the Starry Sky Ancient Path, he could walk unhindered. But if he entered the Eternal World, with his current cultivation, he would not be able to fight against the Immortal Emperor clan. I must seize the time to cultivate. Although the vast Thousand Battle Domain is extremely dangerous and bloody, it is also an excellent place to train myself. As Lin Sun thought about it, he could not help but look forward to it. The vast Thousand Battle Domain. That was a place where only the Emperor realm could run unhindered. Perhaps if he wanted to pass through, he would have to fight his way out. But Lin Sun was not afraid. He was never afraid of opponents. He was only afraid of a lack of challenges. A month passed in a flash. The vast universe arc carried Lin Sun and Cyan Sparrow, and finally left the area covered by the Starry Sky Ancient Path. They arrived at a strange and chaotic, desolate starfield. There were howling and raging space-time storms everywhere. Flowing light surged like a tide. All kinds of natural disasters occurred frequently. It was extremely terrifying. At this time, Lin Sun had no choice but to put away the vast universe arc and began to concentrate on the journey. According to Cyan Sparrow, this was a plane of a universe that had fallen into a disaster. It was isolated from the starry sky ancient path and was extremely dangerous. Usually, only the Emperor realm could cross it. And on the way to the gate of the boundless Thousand Realm, there were many such collapsed universes. Lin Sun crossed it. With his current cultivation, when he moved through the void, he could appear 1,000 miles away in the blink of an eye. But when he reached this place, Lin Sun had no choice but to slow down. There were too many disasters in the starry sky, and it was terrifying. Sometimes, a torrent of flowing light seemed to be far away in the sky, but it would sweep in front of you in the blink of an eye. If you fell into it, your flesh and soul would be erased in an instant. In some seemingly calm areas, it was very likely that there would be a huge void ravine before you could react. It was like a bloody mouth. Anyone who fell into it would be doomed eternally. Even with Lin Sun's cultivation, he frequently encountered some sudden dangers along the way. Although he got through all of them in the end, he was still awe-inspiring in his heart. A few days later, as soon as Lin Sun avoided a gray cloud like a black hole, he heard a noisy voice. "Old ancestor, go away. Don't worry about me." Lin Sun was stunned, and his divine awareness swept over. In the distant starry sky, there was a huge black hole vortex. The nearby void was torn, twisted, and collapsed. A woman was surrounded by the aura of the Emperor Realm. The woman with the aura of Emperor Realm was trapped on the side of the black hole vortex. Her whole body was roaring, and she tried her best to stabilize her figure. But she couldn't get out of the trap at all. Moreover, as the black hole vortex rotated, the power of devouring and distortion became more and more terrible, which made the woman show a look of despair. Not far from the black hole vortex, there was a windfire hassock. On the hassock stood a group of practitioners, men and women, who were all anxious and couldn't bear to leave. "Go away." The woman who was trapped on the edge of the black hole vortex said sternly, "It took me a lot of effort to rescue you. Are you going to die here with me?" Those men and women all showed sadness. At this moment, a big hand suddenly stretched across the void and reached toward the black hole vortex. The big hand was flowing with Taoist light. As soon as it appeared, the black hole vortex trembled violently and wailed. This unbelievable scene left all the men and women dumbfounded. At the same time, the big hand scooped. The woman trapped on the edge of the black hole vortex was picked up and taken to a nearby safe area. "Old ancestor is saved." Those men and women erupted into cheers and were extremely excited. On the other hand, the woman who was already prepared to die was stunned after being saved, and then she suddenly turned around and bowed towards the direction of the big hand. "I'm Jintian Shuiyun from the Jintian clan of the Imperial clan. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for saving my life." Those men and women raised their eyes and looked over, and they saw a tall figure coming over from afar. He wore moon-white clothes that fluttered in the wind, and he seemed indifferent and extraordinary like an immortal. It was naturally Lin Sun. Lin Sun revealed an expression of as expected when he heard Jintian Shuiyun introduce himself. Earlier, when he was watching from afar, he'd noticed that the aura of these people was of the same origin as Jintian Xinhua. Lin Sun immediately smiled and said, "There's no need to be so courteous. Actually, Sword Emperor Fufeng and Miss Xinhua are old friends." Jintian Shuiyun was stunned, and he stared at Lin Sun carefully for a moment before he suddenly recognized Lin Sun, and he cried out involuntarily, "So it's Emperor Daoyuan, Lin Daoyuan." Who didn't know him in the starry sky now? Those young men and women also trembled, and their eyes widened. When they looked at Lin Sun, it was as if they'd seen a legend with their own eyes, and their eyes were filled with shock, curiosity, fanaticism, and excitement. Lin Sun ignored them and asked, "Why are you all here? Are you also going to the other side?" Jintian Shuiyun nodded. "That's right. To tell you the truth, I also planned to bring these young people to the other side to try my luck. If I could find some serendipity, it would definitely allow them to have a broader future. But who would have thought that such an accident would happen just on the way there?" When she said this, Jean Tian Shuyan could not help but smile bitterly. She still felt a lingering fear when she recalled what she'd just experienced. The others also felt sad and sorrowful. On the ancient path of the galaxy, a martial emperor like Jean Tian Shuyan was also a supreme existence who could look up to the heavens and intimidate the people. But clearly, she had greatly underestimated the dangers of going to the other side. Or rather, she probably did not know that to go to the other side of the eternal true world, she would need to go through the bloody and dangerous vast thousand battle domains. Otherwise, why would she bring a group of young people with her? P.S. Update sent. I've made up for the lack of updates, and I'm relieved, everyone. Please vote if you have a monthly vote. There are only a few people who voted. Terrible. M. Chapter 2492. Lin Sun saw this, but didn't say anything. Before he met Yuan Qingheng, he knew nothing about going to the Nirvana realm. In fact, it's not just us. As early as 10 years ago, after the taboo power of order on the starry sky ancient path lost control, many strong cultivators from all the orthodoxies in the world swarmed to the Nirvana realm to cultivate. Jean Tian Shui said with respect, "I thought that without the taboo power of order, this journey should be smooth and unimpeded. Who would have thought that this journey would be so dangerous?" Lin Sun realized that in the past 10 years after Shi Tiandi's death, many major forces had already set out on the starry sky ancient path. However, how many people could really understand the dangers of this journey? Lin Sun said, "If you trust me, you should return now. This journey is so dangerous that even Emperor Ancestor Realm cultivators are likely to suffer. Since ancient times, many great emperors have fallen on the way before they could reach the Nirvana realm." Jean Tian Shuyu nodded. "Thank you for your advice. In fact, even if you didn't say it, I didn't plan to go any further." As she said, she couldn't help but sigh. "In the past, I thought that after becoming an emperor, I could run amok in the heavens. But now that I've reached this realm, I understand how difficult the great Tao is." After chatting for a while, Lin Sun left. After watching him leave, the men and women of Jintian clan dared to talk with each other. Back then, I remember that when Sister Xianyue said that she wanted to follow Emperor Dao Yuan to cultivate, she was strongly opposed by the clan. For this reason, Sister Xianyue even abandoned the surname of the clan, making the elders of the clan furious. A beautiful woman said, "But now, it turns out that Sister Xianyue is right." The others were overwhelmed with emotions. In the early years, Emperor Dao Yuan was in a dangerous situation and was regarded as an enemy by the ancient orthodoxies of the heavens. Who would have thought that, in the end, it was the ancient orthodoxies of the heavens that were deterred by Emperor Dao Yuan's power? Who would have thought that on the starry sky ancient path, the prestige of Emperor Dao Yuan was so great that even the 6 Dao courts had to fear him? He is a legend, unparalleled since ancient times. It's a pity that back then, our Jintian clan was worried that we would be implicated and didn't form a friendship with such a person. Jean Tian Shui Yin could not help but let out a long sigh. Lin Sun walked in the vast starry sky. Saving Jean Tian Shuiyun was just a trivial matter to him. What Jean Tian Shuiyun said made Lin realize that they were likely to meet many strong practitioners from the starry sky ancient path on the way to the other side. Half a month later, Lin Sun finally walked out of the collapsing universe that was prone to frequent disasters and entered a completely strange star region. According to the Cyan Sparrow, this was the White Crow star field, one of the boundless worlds. The cultivation civilization there was quite prosperous, and it was ranked around 90th in the boundless worlds. When the ranking of the universe was mentioned, Lin Sun couldn't help but be curious. According to his knowledge, the boundless world was a general term that represented numerous universes and planes. The starry sky ancient road was just one of them. There were so many universes, so who had the qualifications to make a ranking? What was the basis of this ranking? Green Sparrow gave the answer. In the boundless 1,000 battle domains, there was a realm battle tablet, and the ranking of the various universes was based on the realm battle tablet. The realm battle tablet was formed from the order of the Grand Tao in the boundless 1,000 battle domains, and it was extremely special. The battle strength displayed by the experts who challenged the boundless thousand battle domains will be sensed by the order of the Grand Tao, and from there, different rankings would be displayed. This ranking was related to the position of the different universes in the boundless thousand battle domains. For example, Lin Sun came from the starry sky ancient road, so the ranking he was recorded while he was adventuring in the boundless thousand battle domains would affect the ranking of the starry sky ancient road in the entire boundless thousand world. This was a simple, crude, and intuitive representation. After all, the more powerful a universe was, the easier it was to give birth to incomparably powerful experts, and there would be more than one. When they traversed the starry sky and roamed the boundless thousand battle domains, the battle strength they displayed was already sufficient to represent the top battle strength of a universe. In fact, it was impossible for an ordinary person to reach the boundless thousand battle domains. This also meant that anyone who was able to enter the boundless thousand battle domains was a supreme expert from the boundless thousand world. After Qing Ke spoke of these matters, she specially commented on the starry sky ancient road, saying, 200,000 years ago, the experts who traversed the starry sky from the starry sky ancient road to the other side all displayed extremely dazzling strength. Their battle achievements in the boundless thousand battle domains were also extremely outstanding, and they once firmly occupied the top 3 rankings of the starry sky ancient road and were even ranked first several times. At that time, the experts of the starry sky ancient road were revered no matter where they went in the boundless thousand battle domains. Not to say that no one dared to provoke them, but they could do whatever they wanted. However, in these 200,000 years, the starry sky ancient road was in a state of decline. Not only did the number of top experts decrease sharply, but even its ranking in the boundless thousand battle domains was constantly being suppressed. Until now, it is almost unable to maintain its position in the top 100. After listening, Lin Sun roughly deduced one thing. 100,000 years ago was the ancient era of the starry sky ancient road. 200,000 years ago was the ancient era of the starry sky ancient road. In other words, the ranking of the starry sky ancient road was still extremely high in the ancient era, but after the ancient era, the ranking of the starry sky ancient road was declining day by day. And according to what Yuan Qingheng had said before, this was because the starry sky ancient road had encountered a great calamity in the ancient era, which caused the power of the order of the starry sky ancient road to collapse, and thus fell into ruin. Similarly, in those 200,000 years, the power of order from the Luo family from the other side had also blocked the path of the starry sky ancient road to the other side. As a result, the starry sky ancient road in the boundless thousand world became increasingly declining. After understanding this, Lin Sun could not help but sigh. At the beginning of the ancient era, peerless figures such as Sword Emperor Taixien, Battle Emperor Wu Yang, and Buddhist Lord Xingjiao were extremely dazzling. However, in the years that followed, it was extremely rare to see such towering figures like them again. With your strength alone, it is impossible for you to change the ranking of the starry sky ancient road. I advise you not to think about this matter. The green sparrow reminded with a hint of warning. Although I don't know why Miss asked me to stay by your side and guide you. Since it is Miss's order, I will naturally give you the guidance you deserve. However, it is useless to say more now. When you can really reach the boundless thousand battle domain alive, you will understand how terrible that place is. The green sparrow looked small, but there was a kind of pride in its bones. Even in the face of Lin Sun, it still looked down on him and gave him pointers. Lin Sun bent his finger and flicked the green sparrow's head. He smiled and said, "You just need to guide me. You don't have to worry about other things." The green sparrow staggered and almost fell from Lin Sun's shoulder. As if it had suffered a great humiliation, it said angrily, "How dare you? Do you know who I am?" Lin Sun said, "I only know that you are giving me directions. If you dare to disobey your master's order, I dare to peel off your hair, skin you, and roast you." The green sparrow was stunned. It seemed that she did not expect Lin Sun to be so rude. After a while, she muttered, "If it was not for Mrs. Order, I would not have said a word to you, just because of what you said." Lin Sun smiled and did not argue anymore. As he moved through the void, he felt the power of the Great Way in the White Crow Star area. He acutely sensed that the starry sky of this universe was indeed very unusual. The rules of the Great Way that it covered were incomparably strong and solid. It was indeed incomparable to the starry sky, ancient path. Moreover, Lin Sun saw many worlds along the way. Each world had a different style and culture of cultivation. In some worlds, there were many sects and prosperous Taoism. However, the competition was extremely cruel. In order to compete for cultivation resources, large-scale bloody conflicts could be seen everywhere. In some worlds, there were some people who stood at the top of the Emperor realm. They lived in magnificent palaces with countless beautiful women serving them. They lived a luxurious life of wine and gold. Their cultivation was still strong, but their state of mind had been degenerated. In some worlds, cultivators called themselves celestial beings and enslaved all living beings in the world. They regarded living beings as meat and took whatever they wanted. Their methods were cruel and bloody. In some worlds along the way, no matter what he saw or felt, Lin Sun didn't feel anything. He just looked at it indifferently. Occasionally, when he encountered some scenes that he couldn't bear, Lin Sun would erase them. For example, once, when a poor village was besieged by demonic beasts, Lin Sun casually struck down a heavenly thunder, and the tide of demonic beasts was wiped out. Countless poor villagers shed tears of gratitude and kowtowed incessantly. They thought it was God's mercy that saved them from danger. But most of the time, Lin Sun was like a passerby. He glanced at them coldly and then moved away. He was very clear that no matter which world or place, as long as there were cultivators, there would inevitably be killings and bloody things. He was not a savior. At least for now, he couldn't possibly have the ability to resolve all this. 3 days later, in a vast and cold starry sky, Lin Sun suddenly stopped. Crash! At the same time, there was a violent ripple in the void in all directions. Then, one after another, figures glowing with the aura of the Emperor realm appeared. When the void calmed down, there were 6 more people in the nearby area. There were men and women, old and young, and all of them were surrounded by the law of the Emperor realm. The leader was a man in a colorful robe, stepping on a golden rainbow. His power was even more frightening. He had the aura of the 8th level of the Emperor realm. They stood on different sides of Lin Sun, forming a formation to besiege him. When they looked at Lin Sun, they all stared at him as if he was a prey. The formation, the gaze, and the faintly discernible coldness in these people's eyes made Lin Sun frown. Was this a robbery? Chapter 2493. Ordinary martial cultivators might engage in the shady business of blocking the road and robbing. However, a group of Emperor Realm cultivators would not do such a disgraceful thing. Lin Sun glanced around, but did not say anything. The leading man in a rainbow-robed 8th level Emperor Realm said coldly, "You're from a starry sky, ancient path?" Lin Sun said indifferently, That's right. Come with us." The man in a rainbow robe seemed very conceited. His eyes were full of indifference, and his words could not be disobeyed. "Where?" Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. A man in a blood-red crane cloak, whose skin was fairer than a woman, could not help but smile. "You'll understand when we get there." Cyan Sparrow, who was standing on Lin Sun's shoulder, suddenly said, "They're from the first orthodoxy of the White Crow Star Field, Spirit's divine mountain. As far as I know, anyone captured by them will be stripped of their primordial spirit and refined into a puppet without will and consciousness. If you go with them, you'll probably end up the same way." The man in a rainbow robe and the others could not help but look at Cyan Sparrow. They did not expect that such a sparrow could see through their identity. Lin Sun finally understood. A cold luster appeared in his deep eyes. "It seems like you guys are really a group of robbers. No, you guys are even worse. Others only want money, but you guys want lives. You're even more despicable." The man in a rainbow robe sighed and said, "Why can't you cultivators of the starry sky, ancient path, recognize your own situation? Instead of going to the boundless 1,000 battlefields to die, it's better to stay in the Spirit's divine mountain. Even if you're refined into a puppet, you can at least live forever. Lin Sun said thoughtfully, so you've already captured many cultivators of the starry sky, ancient path? The man in a rainbow robe nodded and looked very calm. In the past 10 years, there have been more than 20 Emperor Realm cultivators like you. They've all become Emperor Realm battle puppets and serve the spirits' divine mountain. Lin Sun said, so what if they're below the Emperor Realm? The feminine man in a blood-red crane cloak could not help but laugh and interrupted. Those small fries are not worthy of the spirit's divine mountain's attention. His voice revealed a sense of conceit. I see. Lin Sun couldn't help sighing. Outside the ancient path of the starry sky, there were collapsing universes where calamities and tribulations occurred frequently, and it had already obstructed the footsteps of many experts. They had finally entered the White Crow Star region with great difficulty, yet they would be targeted by the great forces of this star region like prey. For the cultivators of the starry sky ancient path, the path to the other shore was indeed too dangerous. Fellow Taoist, if you've thought it through, then just surrender obediently so that you won't have to suffer too much from all the fighting and killing. The blood-colored crane, cloaked man, said with a smile. Is that so? On the contrary, I feel that none of you will be able to leave today. Lin Sun said calmly. His voice hadn't finished resounding in the air when he'd already strode forward while his sleeve fluttered, and then numerous dazzling and resplendent strands of sword chi shot through the sky like divine rays of light and swept towards the surroundings. The cold, starry sky was illuminated by the brilliant sword chi. I knew you wouldn't resign yourself to fate. Then don't blame us for being impolite. Attack! The rainbow-robed man in the lead snorted coldly and attacked immediately. Boom! With a wave of his hand, a silver axe swept out and set off a sky full of treasure light. The sound of Tao rumbled like thunder, and its power was peerlessly fierce. On the other side, the rainbow-robed woman and the other four also attacked together. Each of them took out their treasures and used their Tao techniques to besiege Lin Sun. However, they had far underestimated the terror of the sword chi. Bang! The first to suffer was the rainbow-robed man. The silver axe that he'd swung out was pierced by the sword chi and exploded in the void. Before the rainbow-robed man could react, the sword chi had already broken through and swept lightly. With a puff, this expert of the 8th level of the Emperor Realm was directly crushed by the sword chi. Both his body and soul were destroyed. Immediately after that, there were shrill screams coming from other directions. From time to time, blood splattered, treasures exploded in the void, and Tao techniques collapsed like a tide. Especially the feminine man in the blood-colored crane cloak, he was riddled with thousands of holes by the sword chi and died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, 6 Emperor Realm experts were annihilated. The nearby starry sky was still shaking violently. The smell of blood had just fermented and spread, but there was no opponent in the field. Cyan Sparrow's intelligent eyes fell into a dull state. After a moment, she murmured, "You've hidden your strength well. It turns out that you're a peerless great emperor. No wonder Miss treats you differently." Lin Sun smiled as if he'd just done a small thing. He didn't stay and moved away immediately. After 30 minutes, in this starry sky, a burning golden figure appeared out of thin air. His pupils were bright, and his power oppressed the starry sky into a violent shaking. Looking closely, he wore a lapis lazuli armor and a feather crown. He looked like a handsome young man, but his eyes were full of vicissitudes of life. As soon as he arrived, he glanced at the battlefield. After a while, he suddenly stretched out his hand, and a light screen emerged, showing a picture. In the picture, Lin Sun was besieged by a group of emperors. The man stared at Lin Sun, trying to see something, but the picture was too vague and disappeared in a moment. "No matter who you are, I'll remember you." The man's voice was cold and murderous. The void nearby tumbled, and figures emerged. When they saw the man, they all bowed respectfully and called him ancestor. "I'm going to the vast 1,000-battle domain. You must take good care of the sect." As soon as the man finished speaking, he turned into a dazzling light and teleported into the distance. Those figures that had just arrived glanced at each other, and all of them were surprised and bewildered. On the same day, news came from the White Crow star field that 6 emperors of the All-Spirits God Mountain were killed by a terrifying figure who crossed the starry sky ancient road. On the same day, the supreme elder of All-Spirits God Mountain, Emperor Golden Flame, set out for the vast thousand-battle domain. As soon as the news came out, the White Crow star field was in an uproar. All-Spirits God Mountain was the supreme giant of the White Crow star field. It had stood for countless years, and no one dared to offend it. But today, 6 martial emperors have been killed consecutively. The most inconceivable thing was that Emperor Golden Flame, who had already become an emperor 100,000 years ago and possessed a cultivation at the ancestor realm, had actually personally set out to kill his enemy. For a time, this matter also caused a stir in the White Crow star field. Lin Sun was not affected by the news at all. He did not know that not long after he left, an emperor ancestor was alarmed and wanted to kill him. This kind of situation will happen frequently on the way. You must be prepared in advance. Cyan Sparrow reminded him on the way. After the previous battle, her attitude towards Lin Sun seemed to have changed subtly. He no longer had that domineering aura, but she was still very proud. Lin Sun nodded and did not say anything. The previous experience made him feel a little upset. For countless years, the starry sky ancient road was covered by the Forbidden Order power, blocking the way to the other side. Now, with the death of Shi Tiandi, the Forbidden Order power was out of control. It was not easy for cultivators to have a chance to go to the other side. But who would have thought that the journey would be so dangerous? All kinds of natural disasters, endless man-made disasters, and even refined into puppets. This was only in the White Crow star field. How many similar dangers would there be on the way? Under such circumstances, how many strong cultivators of the starry sky, ancient road, could reach the vast thousand battlefields? The saddest thing was, even if they reached the vast thousand battlefields, how much hope was there to kill a bloody way to reach the eternal world? This is a bloody and dangerous road. If I want to go forward, I must step on a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood to open a way. Lin Sun said to himself. Lin Sun traveled alone in the cold universe and the dark sky. His journey was full of loneliness and solitude. Only Cyan Sparrow was by his side, which gave him a little comfort. However, as they continued to move forward, both Lin Sun and Cyan Sparrow became much quieter. Along the way, Lin Sun passed through many collapsed universes. There were frequent natural disasters, and the terrifying power produced almost put him in danger several times. Later, after Cyan Sparrow's explanation, Lin Sun learned that those collapsed universes were extremely prosperous in the beginning and inhabited by tens of thousands of living beings. However, most of them fell into wither and perish because of the collapse of the power of order. In the end, there was no life left, and only desolation and frequent natural disasters were left. All along the way, Lin Sun had passed through numerous extremely vast universes that were flourishing in cultivation, and some universes were even more formidable than White Crow stellar region. Merely the aura of the ancestor realm that Lin Sun sensed all along the way could be seen everywhere. When he walked in those strange universes, there would more or less be some conflicts and killings. Not to mention the starry sky bandits who robbed him. Most of the time, Lin Sun was targeted by people who wanted to kill him. And those who dared to attack an Emperor Realm cultivator like him were naturally not ordinary people. However, without exception, they were all killed by Lin Sun. With his cultivation, he was no longer afraid of the Emperor Realm cultivators. If an ordinary Emperor Realm cultivator came to him, it would be no different than courting death. But later, Lin Sun discovered a reality that made him vigilant. In some extremely prosperous and dazzling universes, there were terrifying existences beyond the progenitor realm and reached the immortal realm, and there were many of them. Fortunately, he was in a hurry along the way. At other times, he kept a low profile unless trouble came to him, so he did not attract the attention of the immortal realm cultivators. And what he saw and heard along the way also made Lin Sun certain of one thing. Compared to the universes that he saw along the way, the starry sky ancient path was really in decline. At least, on the starry sky ancient path, there were no more immortal realm cultivators. Half a year later, Lin's sun, who was already covered in wind and frost, came to a universe that collapsed, dried up, and suffered frequent natural disasters. After careful search and investigation, Lin's sun came to a relatively safe giant planet. It was also here that after so many years, Lin's sun finally ushered in the opportunity to step into the 6th level of the Emperor realm. Chapter 2494. The 6th level of the Emperor realm was called the Void Connecting Realm. It was also called the Lawless Realm. At this stage, the practitioner's natal imperial realm would form its own source of power. It would no longer be restrained by the power of heaven and earth. As long as the practitioner's natal imperial realm was not destroyed, he would be able to refine all kinds of power between heaven and earth into pure cultivation, so that his own power would be endless. In the past, when a practitioner cultivated, he needed to rely on the blessed abode to comprehend the phenomena of heaven and earth, and to use the power of mountains and rivers. On the starry ancient path, he could summon the wind and rain, move mountains, and fill seas. But if he left the starry ancient path and entered a strange universe, it was very likely that his cultivation would be suppressed, and he could only rely on his own power to support himself. Just like the mortal world, the ancient desolation realm, and the starry ancient path, different worlds and planes covered different laws of heaven and earth. But whether it was the mortal world or the ancient desolation realm, they all belonged to the starry ancient path, so the laws of heaven and earth covered by them were not much different. But once he left the starry ancient path and entered a new universe, it meant that he would have to face new laws of heaven and earth and the power of order. The cultivation that an outsider originally controlled was very likely to be suppressed or even rejected. This was also one of the reasons why practitioners below the Emperor realm rarely had the chance to go to a foreign world, because only people in the Emperor realm could travel between different universes and different laws of heaven and earth. But similarly, people in the Emperor realm might be able to cross different universes, but they would also be rejected by the strange laws of heaven and earth, making it difficult for them to use those strange laws of heaven and earth. For example, if it wasn't for Lin Sun's sufficiently formidable cultivation, then merely the Grand Tao laws that covered the various universes and worlds would be able to cause him to feel extremely pressured. But as long as he reached the 6th level of the Emperor realm, it would be completely different. The so-called lawless meant that no matter which universe, no matter what laws of heaven and earth he faced, he could ignore them. The core was the transformation of the natal imperial realm. The void-reaching Emperor realm could be lawless and refine all kinds of power for his own use. Even if it was a strange world and strange laws of heaven and earth, he could still use them. Now, Lin Sun was about to face a great tribulation to enter the void-reaching realm. On the barren star, Lin Sun sat cross-legged with a dull look, like an old well without any ripples. His cultivation was restrained to the extreme and contained in the life Emperor realm. On the other hand, the natal Emperor stage was like a volcano that had been accumulating for many years and was about to erupt, producing thunderous roars. The entire huge celestial body resonated with it. This was the depths of a collapsed universe. The Grand Tao had dried up, and disasters occurred frequently. However, it was also for this reason that Lin Sun chose to undergo the heavenly tribulation here. First, there was no power of the Great Way. Second, this place was desolate and uninhabited, so he was not afraid of being disturbed. 3 days later, Lin Sun's body was covered with dust, and there was no sign of life, just like the nearby rocks and dust. Lin Sun was as dead as a tree. However, the huge celestial body beneath him was constantly resonating and moving rhythmically, as if it was inhaling and exhaling. The natal monarch realm in his body seemed to be on fire, showing signs of boiling and gushing. Silently, rolling black clouds emerged from the depths of the sky. The breath of disaster, like a torrent, instantly covered the sky above Lin Sun's head. It was as dark as the eternal night. The oppressive and terrible breath of disaster could make ordinary people in the Emperor realm desperate and collapse. It was too powerful, and this scene lasted for a whole day. The huge celestial body was completely shrouded by thick black clouds, which were dark and exuded a majestic and boundless breath of destruction. In the dead silence, there was a sudden loud noise. It was like the first thunder in the creation of the world. This collapsed and withered starry sky suddenly trembled. Countless barren stars rumbled and exploded, turning into powder. Crack! The huge celestial body under Lin Sun also cracked. Unable to bear the loud noise, it suddenly burst into pieces. At this time, Lin Sun, who had been silent and motionless, quietly opened his eyes and stood up. With this movement, the natal Emperor realm, which had been compressed to the extreme and boiled to the extreme, erupted completely like a volcano. Boom! A strand of a terrifying and boundlessly imposing aura of the Grand Tao spread out from Lin Sun's body, and it faintly seemed like an enormous abyss had appeared within it. A cauldron had surged out from within the abyss, and the surroundings of the cauldron had instead developed into a brilliant and boundless universe. The sun, moon, stars, the landscape, all of them had transformed into phenomena that fluttered about. Later, a chaos tree rose from the ground and released chaos. Suddenly, all the strange phenomena were covered in it. It was chaotic and indescribable. Lin Sun was still Lin Sun, but the power he released at this moment was so strong that it tore the thick black clouds above his head. Rumble! In the depths of the clouds, thunder and lightning flowed and danced wildly, as if they were enraged. Endless thunderbolts poured down like the Milky Way. The power released by each thunderbolt was unimaginably terrible. A single wisp of it was enough to kill people in the Emperor realm and the world. At this time, it was like the Milky Way had burst its dike and poured down. That scene could even make the ancestors of the Emperor realm tremble with fear. There was no doubt that this was an unprecedented catastrophe. Lin Sun, who was below it, didn't dodge. Instead, he rushed up and opened his arms. His tall figure was like a big abyss, releasing unparalleled, devouring, and obliterating power. In an instant, his whole body was submerged by the endless torrent of thunder and lightning. The bright lightning was dense, and the earth-shattering thunder rumbled. All of a sudden, there was a scene like the end of the world. But just after a moment, the rolling torrent of thunder and lightning was constantly swallowed and obliterated as if it was swept by a huge whirlpool. Later, the thunder and lightning disappeared between heaven and earth. Only Lin Sun's abyss-like figure was left standing there, releasing infinite light. Looking carefully, the remaining thunder and lightning were still flowing through the pores of his body, but he was unscathed and his momentum was even stronger. It's just an appetizer. Come again. Lin Sun raised his eyes and looked into the depths of the sky. There was a faint fighting spirit burning in the depths of his eyes. Boom! As if it was completely enraged, the tribulation cloud rolled, showing all kinds of scenes of the end of the world. Then, the thunder and lightning evolved into the phantoms of gods and demons. There were thousands of them, roaring and rushing to Lin Sun. It was like an army of gods and demons on an expedition. Lin Sun smiled indifferently and rushed up, displaying his own Tao and law. Every move of his released the power to destroy the world. The army of gods and demons was defeated in pieces, turned into a rain of thunder and lightning, and then was swallowed up by Lin Sun's figure. He was like a hot knife through butter, galloping and killing, sweeping away all obstacles. Before the army of gods and demons was killed, all kinds of strange scenes rushed out from the depths of the tribulation cloud. There was the purgatory world stained with black blood, condensing and covering down. There was a bright and shining Milky Way, gathering billions of stars. There were ancient altars, mysterious pagodas, strange Taoist rites, magnificent divine palaces, towering Taoist mountains one after another. Those scenes were simply unbelievable. This was the power that a great trial of the Emperor's path could display. Even Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. Then he laughed and jumped up. He completely released himself and exerted all of his strength. He didn't think of anything in his mind, and he didn't have any thoughts at all. There was only battle intent burning in his heart, and it gushed out wantonly. Rumble. This starry sky was completely covered by the endless breath of destruction and tribulation. All kinds of thunder and lightning phenomena appeared frequently, shocking the world. It didn't take long for Lin Sun's figure to be heavily injured. He was crushed, bombarded, torn, or whipped, but he still kept on fighting, as if he didn't know pain in life and death. His majestic and powerful figure had never been defeated. After a long time, only then did the tribulation lightning gradually dissipate. In the field, only Lin Sun's broken figure was left. But his spirit was still boiling, his unparalleled fighting spirit was still strong, and his will was unshakable. This catastrophe was far more terrifying than he had imagined. It had even exceeded his imagination. But at this moment, Lin Sun had no way back. He never thought of retreating. In his lifetime, since he'd risen to prominence at a young age until now, he'd experienced countless heavenly tribulations. Every single one of them was simply like he was fighting with his life on the line between life and death, and it was dangerous to the extreme and terrifying to the extreme. It was far from something an ordinary cultivator could understand. But he never flinched once. Naturally, this time was no exception. Similarly, no one knew better than Lin Sun that after experiencing those strange and even abnormal tribulations, the benefits were beyond imagination. Without giving Lin Sun too much time to breathe, another tribulation thunder was formed. Boom! Majestic figures of thunder and lightning, like ancient kings patrolling the world, rushed out from the depths of the tribulation thunder. Each of them glowed with power that was not weaker than Lin Sun at all, just like a group of peerless emperors. The most incredible thing was that these figures were men and women with different appearances. Some wore Taoist robes, rode cyan Kylan, and held jade rulers. Some held golden halberds, wore imperial crowns, and wore blood-stained armors. Some figures were slender, with a hazy light rain, and looked like immortals, holding a jade bottle. Some were as fierce as demons, manipulating wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, and stepping on the blood purgatory sea. Every single one of them had an infinite amount of power. Lin Sun's pupils shrank, and a thought came to his mind. Is it possible that this tribulation evolved from the emperors who had shone brilliantly on the path of extinction in ancient and modern times? It was the first time that Lin Sun had encountered such a tribulation, which was extremely strange and terrible. Before Lin Sun could think more, boom! Those terrible figures had already stepped on the void and rushed towards Lin Sun, and suddenly Lin Sun was besieged. Although these figures were not the real peerless emperors, their power was not inferior to Lin Sun's. The power of Taoism and treasures they displayed was extremely powerful, which was the real power of the peerless emperors. P.S. The second update will be a little late. Today is her birthday, so I'll have dinner with her. Chapter 2495. The battle broke out in the void. A group of peerless figures besieged Lin Sun. The power they released shattered the sky and destroyed everything. It was unimaginably horrible. Lin Sun, who was seriously injured, was in great danger at this moment. He was so oppressed that he almost couldn't lift his head. There had never been a tribulation as difficult and terrible as this one. It was completely beyond Lin Sun's expectation. But he didn't have the time to think about all of this. The essence, energy, and spirit in his entire body blazed to the extreme, and the will that he'd tempered through many years of slaughter allowed him to maintain a wisp of calmness and emptiness in his mind, even when he was in deep trouble. Gradually, he acutely noticed that even though every single one of his opponents possessed supreme strength and were peerlessly formidable, they lacked intelligence and intelligence. This caused their attacks to lack variation and agility. This was a flaw. However, these opponents were too powerful, so it was extremely difficult to catch and attack them. After a long time, Lin Sun's situation became more and more unbearable. His body was broken and cracked, and his bones were broken. He looked extremely miserable. He was gasping for breath, but his eyes were burning with flames. After all, it's just a thunder punishment, not a living emperor of Juing. I should try my best to suppress him in mind, cultivation, willpower, and strength. Suddenly, Lin Sun let out a roar. His mind was like a god, and his willpower was like iron. He exhausted all his cultivation and attacked with all his strength. Kill, kill, kill. He didn't care about life or death, nor was he afraid of being injured. There was only a pure and disdainful fighting intent left in his body. Boom! After a while, a man with a golden halberd, a crown, and a blood-stained armor was punched by Lin Sun and turned into a rain of thunder and lightning. As Lin Sun's figure swallowed the rain of thunder and lightning, a wonderful feeling came to his mind. Nielongxiang, the first emperor of Ju Ying in the Feihuang star area, is called Dragon Elephant Emperor. This information was extremely vague. It was just a description, but it was impossible to know the details. So Lin Sun didn't know which plane of the flying locust star area was in the vast thousand world and how great Nielongxiang was. But this experience reminded Lin of his experience in the samsara world of nirvana and the ranking of each realm since ancient times. On the other hand, the scene before his eyes seemed to be a competition between Ju Ying's imperial realm cultivators for rankings. But Lin Sun was not sure whether it was true or not. Moreover, he didn't have much time to think. The battle was still going on. However, after defeating an opponent and devouring the scattered thunder and light rain, Lin Sun's strength seemed to have undergone a wonderful transformation, making his seriously injured figure show a new kind of power. This change refreshed Lin Sun. Kill! His fighting spirit was burning, and he fought while bathed in blood. Not long after, an old man in a Taoist robe, riding a green Kylin and holding a jade ruler, was killed by Lin Sun. Before the light rain fell, he was swallowed up by Lin Sun. Immediately after, that wondrous feeling appeared again. Feng Xingzi, the #1 martial emperor in the One Zhenxing domain. His title is Martial Emperor Wu Hong, and he has dominated the universe for 90,000 years. At the same time, Lin Sun's strength changed again. Sure enough, defeating the opponent is equivalent to killing the Thunder Retribution. I can obtain the power of nirvana from the Thunder Retribution and transform my own cultivation. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep and bright. When he looked at the opponents in the field again, it was as if he was staring at delicious prey. Kill! Without hesitation, he rushed out again. What a horrible chi of disaster! Who is crossing the Thunder Retribution here? A mighty and bright golden figure suddenly floated up into appearance nearby this collapsed and desolate universe, and it emanated a terrifying glow and flowed with divine radiance. Looking carefully, it was Emperor Golden Flame, the supreme elder of all spirits mountain in the White Crow Star area. At this moment, his pupil shrank, and he was moved. In the senses of his divine sense, there were layers upon layers of tribulation clouds in the depths of the collapsed universe, and it was like an eternal night that blotted out the sky and blotted out the sun. Merely the aura of destruction they emanated caused a martial ancestor realm figure, like him, to shudder with fear. Emperor Golden Flame immediately stopped and didn't dare to get close for fear of being contaminated by the aura of disaster. It turns out to be the Ju Ying Emperor's tribulation to the 6th level of the Emperor realm. After a while, Emperor Golden Flame revealed a look of understanding. In the White Crow Star area, there were also Ju Shui Emperors, and in the All Spirits Mountain, there was such a legendary figure. He was Emperor Qing's son, the junior brother of Emperor Golden Flame. He was a peerless genius when he was young and had reached the 7th level of Ju Shui Emperor realm in less than 30,000 years of cultivation. As early as thousands of years ago, Emperor Qing's son had set off for the boundless thousand battlefield. As the senior brother, Emperor Golden Flame naturally knew the details of the peerless Emperor realm. He knew that when such an existence broke through the realm, The tribulation they faced was incomparably terrifying. No, when junior brother Ching Sun was crossing the Thunder Retribution, it wasn't so terrifying. Soon, Emperor Golden Flame's face changed slightly and revealed a look of disbelief. When Emperor Ching Sun was crossing the sixth tribulation, Emperor Golden Flame had personally protected him. How could he not know the mystery of this tribulation? But at this moment, Emperor Golden Flame was shocked to find that the great tribulation in the depths of the universe was not only more powerful than Emperor Ching Sun's tribulation, but it also produced many incredible changes. Emperor Golden Flame had never seen all of this before. Who is this person? Why is he facing such an unimaginable great tribulation? All of a sudden, Emperor Golden Flame's curiosity was aroused. He, who had originally intended to hurry on with his journey, decided to stay and take a look. Time flew by. Unknowingly, several hours had passed. Gradually, the Golden Flame, the Arch-Ancestor, sensed that the black tribulation clouds that blotted out the sky were showing signs of dissipating. This allowed him to vaguely sense the figure undergoing the tribulation. However, the figure was too far away, and the figure was too dazzling and bathed in lightning, so he couldn't see the figure's appearance clearly. Extraordinary! He was even able to overcome such a great calamity. This person's attainments in the ultimate path towards the Tao is absolutely not inferior to junior brother Ching Sun, and he can be considered as a true peak overlord in a starry sky. Emperor Golden Flame exclaimed inwardly. But in the next moment, he was stunned, and his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. How could it be him? Emperor Golden Flame almost cried out. Far away in the depths of the universe, the rolling tribulation clouds had already dissipated, allowing him to see the appearance of the person undergoing the tribulation. It was the murderer who had killed 6 Emperor Realm experts of the All Spirits God Mountain half a year ago. Half a year ago, he had trekked all the way to find Lin Sun's traces. However, the star path was vast, and he was only sure that Lin Sun was heading to the vast Thousand Battle Domain. Who would have thought that he would actually see him here? Thinking of how he had been amazed and even thought of befriending Huang Xiaolong, Golden Flame martial ancestor's face darkened as if he had swallowed a fly. It's a pity. A person like you could have shone brilliantly in the future, but since you've offended my all-spirits God Mountain, today, you're destined to die. Boiling, killing intent surged in Emperor Golden Flame's heart. He took a deep breath, and with a cold look in his eyes, he took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. Who, seeing the tribulation clouds gradually dissipate, Lin Sun let out a long breath of turbid air. Earlier, he'd crushed the figures of all the peak emperors and devoured the energy of the tribulation lightning, allowing his cultivation to undergo rebirth over and over again. At this moment, he'd already smoothly stepped into the realm of lawlessness. The natal emperor realm in his body was like an eternally burning sun, constantly spewing out abundant energy. At this stage, as long as the natal emperor realm was not destroyed, it would possess the power to refine everything. It could ignore the rules of the great Tao of heaven and earth and be lawless. Lin Sun could feel that his strength had completely changed after reaching this stage. It had undergone a qualitative change. The 9 stages of the Emperor Realm were like a natural chasm. The first 3 stages were known as the Emperor's Heart Barrier. After breaking through this barrier, one's body and mind could become a world. From the 4th to the 6th stage of the Emperor Realm, there was a barrier called the Confinement Barrier. To break through the confinement, there was no law and no heaven. It could be said that the 4th and 5th stage of the Emperor Realm were a kind of accumulation. At the 6th stage of the Emperor Realm, there would be a new great transformation. At this moment, Lin Sun had broken through the confinement barrier and entered the 6th stage of the Emperor Realm. At this moment, his cultivation also underwent an unprecedented change. However, before Lin Sun could feel the subtle mystery of this new change, a sense of danger welled up in his heart. Almost instinctively, his figure flashed. Boom! The void where he had been standing was shattered by a gigantic golden hand. Lin Sun's black eyes suddenly turned cold. At the same time, A surprised voice came from afar. Just the sixth stage of the Emperor realm. Even though you're a peerless great emperor, you're not bad to be able to dodge my attack. Then, the figure of the golden flame Emperor Ancestor appeared. His expression was cold, and his eyes were fixed on Lin's son. Unfortunately, you're destined to die today. Emperor Ancestor. At this moment, Lin Sun's body stiffened and his pupils contracted. He had never thought that such a terrifying existence would suddenly appear out of nowhere. Boom! Before Lin Sun could think about it, the Golden Flame Emperor Ancestor attacked without hesitation. His body released a monstrous golden light that covered the sky and shrouded all directions. He waved his sleeves, pinched his palms and fingers, and slapped hard. The palm print showed a kind of supreme ancestor realm law. It was mysterious and unpredictable. Looking from afar, it was like the hand of God shrouding down to destroy the world and wipe out all living beings. The power of the Golden Flame Emperor Ancestor was vividly reflected at this moment. At this moment, Lin Sun did not hesitate to use his strongest means. The abyssal sword cauldron roared out. The forbidden passage released the light of time. His cultivation was pushed to the extreme at this moment. The figure of the Golden Flame Emperor Ancestor stagnated for a moment. Then, his body was enveloped by the abyssal sword cauldron. With a roar, his body and spirit exploded. Before they could spread, they were obliterated. In an instant, the Golden Flame Emperor Ancestor was killed. Straightforward and efficient, incomparably domineering. The Golden Flame Emperor Ancestor, who was immeasurably powerful and cold, did not even have time to react before he died. Such a way of death was undoubtedly too humiliating and humiliating. If it was spread out, no one would dare to believe it. After all, the Golden Flame Emperor Ancestor was supreme and terrifying. He was absolutely a character above the heavens. But now, he was killed before he could react, which would absolutely make all practitioners dumbfounded. Even Lin Sun himself could not help but be stunned. He patted his forehead and said with regret, "How could I forget that I have just broken through the realm? I should have left this old guy here to test the power of the 6th level of the Emperor realm." If the dead Emperor Ancestor Golden Flame heard these words, who knew what he would think? Literature Library.